In my past life, I was killed by my husband less than 3 months after our marriage. This time, I chose not to pursue him, yet he never remarried for the rest of his life. Main text: on the night of my wedding to Prince Consort Chui Qingyu, I sat in the bridal chamber, my heart filled with anticipation for his arrival. Just then, a voice from the 21st century suddenly echoed in my ear. Welcome to the Nanchu Museum. You are now viewing artifacts unearthed from the tomb of Princess Chang'e, Xin Qingyu. This blue and white porcelain bottle was used by the princess to poison herself. Archaeologists have determined that ingesting this poison causes sudden death within 3 months. This is the phoenix hairpin worn by the princess during her wedding. Historical records state that after she took the poison, the prince consort used this very pin to kill her with his own hands. At first, I didn't believe a word of this strange voice's claims. My mind was filled with doubts. What on earth was going on? Why would such a voice suddenly appear, spouting all this nonsensical stuff? But then, one by one, the objects in my hands became the relics described by that narrator. Only then did I realize, 2,000 years after my death, someone had dug up my tomb, taken my burial artifacts, and placed them in a place called a museum for people to view. Main text: in the 25th year of the Yuanhe era, winter snow swirled through the sky, blanketing the entire world in white. Today was my wedding day, and my heart raced with both nervousness and excitement. My bridegroom, Prince Consort Chui Qingyu, was none other than the all-powerful imperial tutor of the current dynasty. I had cherished him in my heart for 7 long years, ever since our first meeting in my youth, when my heart became irrevocably bound to him. I waited from the auspicious hour until deep into the night, but Chui Qingyu still hadn't arrived. The bitter ache in my heart was impossible to conceal, like a tiny needle pricking my heart over and over. Gritting my teeth, I took the poison I had prepared long ago and drank it in one gulp. The next moment, a woman's voice, full of emotion, reached my ears. Welcome to the Nanchu Museum. These artifacts were unearthed from the tomb of Princess Xin Qingyu of Chang'e. The porcelain bottle you now see was used by the princess to poison herself 2,000 years ago. Legend has it that after ingesting this poison, one would die mysteriously within 3 months. My hand, clutching the porcelain bottle, jerked violently. My eyes widened as I cautiously scanned the surroundings. Panic gripped me. Museum artifacts? How did she know I'd just taken poison? The room was eerily silent, only the pounding of my heart echoing in my ears. I shouted, "Who's there? Who's speaking?" But no one answered. Just as I was growing desperate, I heard a creak as a door opened. Steady footsteps approached from afar, finally stopping before me. My tension peaked as I lowered my gaze to Chui Qingyu's black boots, only then letting out a sigh of relief. Just as I thought my ears had deceived me, the voice echoed faintly once more. These are the golden-threaded black boots with auspicious cloud designs unearthed from the tomb. They were worn by the Princess Chang'e's consort on their wedding day. Yet on their wedding night, the prince consort left the princess alone in the bridal chamber. My breath caught, my heart leaping to my throat. Just as I was frozen with terror, a hand with sharply defined knuckles lifted my veil with a jade rui. Chui Qingyu looked down at me, his refined features tinged with a hint of coldness. He spoke coldly. This subject sought to marry the legitimate eldest daughter of the general's household. Yet his majesty bestowed upon me a marriage to the princess. His words sliced through the air like a sharp blade, carving an unbridgeable chasm between us. I understood clearly. The woman he truly loved was Xian Mingyu, the valiant female general of Nanchu. As for me, I was merely a princess raised in the cold palace, possessing only an empty title. This marriage was not what he desired at all. He continued, in the future, if the princess finds someone she truly loves, we shall divorce. Hearing Chui Qingyu's words, my heart raced with panic. I clutched the red veil in my hands, feeling utterly helpless. My voice trembled slightly as I replied, "Qingyu, I have no one in my heart at present. Besides him, there is no one else I could ever love. From the moment we first met in my youth, when he leaped into the icy lake to save me from drowning, my eyes could hold no one else. The young man I loved was perfect in every way, except he simply didn't love me back. Yet that except alone nearly killed me." Chui Qingyu paused at my words, his brow furrowing slightly. "If that is your wish, princess," he said, "then I shall honor it." With that, he bowed respectfully before turning away, his face expressionless. I watched his back gradually vanish from view, the bitterness in my heart spreading like a river. I thought to myself, a marriage decreed by the emperor cannot be severed by mere divorce. After 3 months, when I die, I will grant him the freedom he desires. The bridal chamber was cold and desolate, its silence almost frightening. The dragon and phoenix candles on the table crackled softly, their flickering flames seeming ready to die out at any moment. Silently, I sat before the dressing table and reached up to remove the phoenix crown from my head. Just as I reached to remove the golden hairpin from my bun, the intonated narration abruptly resumed. According to historical records, in the early spring of the 26th year of the Yuan era, the imperial son-in-law used this very golden hairpin to kill the princess. A momentary ringing filled my ears, and my mind went blank. My heart raced with fear and dread. As the emperor's tutor, Cui Qingyu's power was at its zenith. My father, the emperor, feared his overwhelming influence, which was why he had bestowed this marriage upon me, a union steeped in hidden humiliation and warning. I knew full well he harbored resentment toward this union. Yet this golden hairpin was a gift Cui Qingyu had given me before our marriage. I murmured to myself, if he wished to kill me, the sword in his hand would suffice. Why would he use this hairpin? And why wait until the first spring of next year? Recalling the words of that otherworldly voice, I found it utterly absurd. This long night stretched on without end. I tossed and turned in bed, unable to close my eyes all night. Early the next morning, Cui Qingyu came to my courtyard. He bowed respectfully before me, then said, "Princess, I have matters to attend to. I must take my leave." With that, he hurried away, and I saw no sign of him all day. I knew deep down that I held no place in his heart. Yet these days of polite formality, if nothing else, could be called peaceful. 3 days later was the day of my return to the imperial palace. I rose early, meticulously packing the belongings I would take to the palace. I waited eagerly, anticipating entering the palace together with Cui Qingyu to perform the ceremonial rites. Standing before the garden gate, I waited and waited, yet his figure never appeared. Just then, that voice from 2,000 years later sounded in my ear once more. According to historical records, Princess Changle entered the palace alone on the day of her return visit with her consort. I furrowed my brow, feeling puzzled. Then the narration continued, "The consort always adheres to propriety. How could he commit such a breach of etiquette?" I couldn't help but mutter inwardly, yes, he always observed propriety. How could this be? Immediately, the narration provided the answer. It was because his one true love, Xia Mingyu, the eldest daughter of the Xia family, had returned victorious from the frontier. The prince consort had gone to the city gate to welcome his beloved maiden. The voice echoed in waves, and my heart sank with each wave. I didn't believe the commentary's explanation. But just then, Cui Qingyu's guard, Abu, hurried into the crimson cloud courtyard. Abu bowed respectfully and said, "Princess, the prince consort has an urgent matter and cannot accompany you to the palace." My heart skipped a beat. What matter could be so important? Abu kept his head bowed, avoiding my gaze. "Princess, I do not know. I only know the prince consort must attend to a matter." I gazed out the window. Snowflakes as large as goose feathers fell softly, bending the plum branches in the courtyard. I waited a long time, but Choi Sungwoo never appeared. With a resigned sigh, I could only proceed to the palace alone. The carriage wheels rolled slowly along the capital streets. All along the way, the air was filled with the lively shouts of the common folk outside. "General Xia has returned. Our Southern Chu's female general has returned. General Xia is truly a heroine among women. She drove away the barbarian troops and returns in triumph." My mind drifted for a moment, and I couldn't help but lift the curtain of the sedan chair. I saw the crowd surging toward the city gate. I glimpsed a familiar figure standing before the city gate tower, gazing intently toward the entrance. That figure was none other than Cui Qingyu. His eyes brimmed with anticipation and hope, as if he had spotted some priceless treasure. My heart clenched sharply, a wave of bitterness washing over me like an impenetrable tide. I let the curtain fall limply, unable to bear looking any longer. Finally, we reached the palace, its walls adorned with verdant willows. I arrived at the Phoenix Grace Hall, stepping into the Empress's chamber. As before, I knelt on the cold stone floor, performing the kneeling and bowing ritual. Qingyu returns to her family home, I said. I offer my respects to Her Majesty the Empress. As the child of a discarded concubine raised in the cold palace, I had never been granted the privilege of addressing her as Mother Empress. Each time I entered the Phoenix Hall, I could only kneel. The Empress's languid voice drifted from behind the beaded curtain. Where is the wedding night's blood-stained handkerchief? My heart clenched, and my hands unconsciously tightened around my sleeves. During these days of marriage, Cui Qingyu and I had not consummated our union. How could I possibly produce a blood-stained cloth? I kept my head bowed, silent. The matron standing nearby immediately stepped forward, grabbing my arm. My sleeve was pulled up, revealing the vivid red guaishan mark still visible on my snow-white wrist. Seeing this, the Empress's expression darkened instantly. She scolded, "Xing Qingyu. You haven't allowed the prince consort to touch you for 3 days after the wedding. How dare you return to your parents' home?" A sharp pain shot through my heart, and my face paled. I hastily explained, "My menstrual period began these past days, so the prince consort has not touched me." My voice sounded strained. The Empress was about to scold me further when a silver bell-like voice suddenly echoed through Funi Palace, "Auntie, Mingyu is back." Hearing this, the Empress's expression instantly brightened. She turned her gaze toward the palace doors. Xia Mingyu, clad in crimson military attire, entered the hall arm-in-arm with Cui Qingyu. The sight of that handsome man and beautiful woman pierced my eyes like a dagger. Xia Mingyu, with her heroic bearing and status as the Empress's niece, was indeed a perfect match for Cui Qingyu. I clenched my fists tightly, rising with the nurse's support to stand to one side. Cui Qingyu kept his gaze fixed straight ahead, not once looking my way. All the tenderness in his eyes was directed solely at Xia Mingyu. The Empress held Xia Mingyu's hand, her face radiant with affection as she asked, "Mingyu, after winning the battle, have you decided what reward you desire?" Xia Mingyu's eyes flickered slightly as she stole a glance at Cui Qingyu, then replied sweetly, "This humble maiden desires for lovers to be united in marriage." The Empress raised an eyebrow, her tone laden with meaning. "Oh, tell me more." Xia Mingyu paused, rose, took 2 steps, and knelt straight before the Empress. With unwavering resolve, she declared, "Your servant seeks no military honors. I only wish to marry the imperial tutor as his concubine." The words had barely left her lips when the Empress snapped, "Nonsense. How could the legitimate daughter of the Xia family become a concubine?" Xia Mingyu's eyes instantly reddened, tears welling up, yet she remained stubbornly resolute. "This is Mingyu's sole wish." A deathly silence fell over the Phoenix Grace Palace, so quiet one could hear a pin drop. I was stunned by Xia Mingyu's request and instinctively looked toward Cui Qingyu. He was the youth imperial tutor at the zenith of his power, sleeping beneath the wind and moon. I was a princess raised in the cold palace since childhood, without status or name. I had to admit, looking around, only the dashing, renowned Xia Mingyu was truly his equal. But now that he was the imperial son-in-law, how could he possibly take a concubine? The Empress sat upon the main seat in the Phoenix Hall, slowly turning her gaze toward Cui Qingyu, her expression tinged with scrutiny. "Imperial tutor, what exactly is your intention?" Cui Qingyu bowed his head, eyes lowered, his gaze concealing a surge of emotion. He gently smoothed his robes and knelt upright in the center of the hall. "Your servant has already wed the princess. I truly cannot delay, Miss Xia." At these words, the previously murmuring hall fell instantly silent. My heart felt as though an invisible hand had gently seized it, sending a faint, continuous ache through me. Cui Qingyu said he couldn't delay, not that he was unwilling to marry. The implication behind his words made my heart clench even tighter. The Empress looked at him, raising her slender eyebrows slightly, her tone tinged with inquiry. "Has the imperial tutor truly made up his mind?" Cui Qingyu remained calm, his voice steady. "Your Majesty, please let this matter rest." Xia Mingyu's eyes instantly reddened beside him. She stared straight at Cui Qingyu, her gaze filled with both hurt and unwillingness. "My mind is made up. None of you can stop me." With that, she abruptly stood up and stormed out. The Empress sighed softly and hastily ordered a palace attendant to follow, fearing Xia Mingyu might act impulsively and do something foolish. As the sun sank below the western mountains, the homecoming celebration came to an end. Cui Qingyu and I bowed to the Empress in farewell before leaving Fini Hall together. Walking one behind the other along the long palace path, neither of us spoke. A passing palace attendant glanced our way and whispered to a companion. General Xie and Imperial Tutor Chui are a perfect match, such a pity they cannot wed. Had that princess in the cold palace not meddled, General Xie wouldn't have stooped to seeking a position as a concubine. Those light, airy words felt like sharp blades piercing my heart, leaving a stinging ache. As we reached the palace gates, I finally couldn't hold back and asked, "Why didn't you agree to this today?" I thought, if only he had nodded, he could have been united with his beloved forever. How wonderful that would have been. After a long silence, Cui Qingyu slowly replied, "She shouldn't become a concubine." With that, he bowed respectfully to me, his tone courteous, "Your Highness, I have other duties to attend to. Please return to your residence." Every gesture adhered to protocol, yet my chest felt stuffed with cotton, suffocating me. Snowflakes as large as goose feathers drifted down, blanketing the world in a crisp, cold silence. My gaze went blank as I turned and walked toward the carriage waiting at the palace gate. There stood Xie Mingyu beside the carriage, a chill radiating from her form, her shoulders already dusted with a layer of frosty snowflakes. It seemed she had been waiting for me here for quite some time. Upon seeing me, Xie Mingyu showed little reverence in her eyes as she asked directly, "Was marrying into the imperial tutor's household truly your wish, princess?" My steps faltered. I truly wished to say no more on this matter. "Speak your mind plainly," Xie Mingyu insisted, clearly frustrated by my nonchalance. She frowned and continued, "Qingyu and I were meant for each other, yet because of you, we cannot be together. As a princess, you should be a model for all women. Don't you know a noble person should learn to help others achieve their happiness?" I clenched my fists tightly, struggling to steady my expression, and replied coldly, "The emperor's will cannot be defied. The person you should be pleading with is not me. This marriage to Cui Qingyu was not something I actively sought. It was my father, the emperor, who feared his achievements overshadowed the throne, so he made me, a princess, merely a stain on his life." Upon hearing this, Xie Mingyu grew angry, yet she knew further words would be futile. "I sought to marry my beloved by repelling enemy forces. Your brother spent his life guarding the frontier, securing your safety within the palace. Princess Changel, leaving the palace to marry into the imperial tutor's household, how can you face your brother?" She frowned, glared at me, then turned and left. The biting wind and snow swiftly swallowed her spirited figure, vanishing into the snowy landscape. Her words turned my face pale, inch by inch. Indeed, all in the capital knew, Third Prince Xingxi guarded the frontier, swearing by blood never to return to the capital, seeking only to protect the little princess he vowed to shield with his life. Now that I reside in the imperial tutor's residence, would my brother be disappointed? Changel, yet throughout my life, I have never known a single moment of joy. Moreover, I have already taken that antidote with no cure. My thoughts tangled like a knot, and I returned to the imperial tutor's residence in a daze. Jiangyun Courtyard. I walked to the bedside cabinet, opened a drawer, and took out a faded little wooden puppet. Clutching it tightly in my hand, I finally felt a little reassured. At that moment, the voice of the narrator echoed in my ears once more, "Ladies and gentlemen, please observe this rosewood puppet buried with Princess Changel, belonging to her elder brother, Xingxi." As for the third Prince Xingxi, he was a formidable warrior who took to the battlefield at 12, vowing to guard the frontier and never return to the capital. According to historical records, on the day of the princess's wedding, the third prince returned to the capital. He gazed from afar at the imperial tutor's residence and tied a red silk ribbon to the ginkgo tree before the city gate. Hearing this, my head buzzed as if thunder had exploded within it. 10 years ago, when my brother and I parted ways, we made a solemn promise. Every year, he would secretly hang a red silk ribbon on that ancient ginkgo tree by the city gate, his unique signal to let me know he was safe. This was a secret between my brother and me. How could someone from 2,000 years later possibly know? Could everything she said be true? Had my brother truly returned to the capital on the day of my marriage to Cui Qingyu? I stood frozen in place, unable to move for a long time. Only after a considerable while did I manage to stiffen my legs and run outside. The blizzard raged on, thick black clouds blanketing the entire sky. My mind was set on reaching the high pavilion of the imperial tutor's residence to see if red silk truly hung before the city gates. Before I could reach the pavilion, I saw Cho Sungwoo emerge from the manor gate, his face etched with anxiety. Maidservants and servants hurried about in a flurry. Chingy, a maid from my courtyard, approached me in a panic, shouting, "Princess, something terrible has happened." My heart skipped a beat. "What is it? What's happened?" Chingy gasped. "Miss Mingyu of the Xie family has hanged herself." Xie Mingyu committed suicide? I froze, recalling how she had seemed perfectly fine when I saw her earlier that day. She was such a spirited person, how could she suddenly hang herself? A sense of unease spread through me. The snow grew heavier, pure white flakes swirling down. Soon, a thick blanket of snow covered the ground, blocking my path. Maid Chingy hurried over to support me, saying, "Princess, the snow is too heavy. Let's return to Jiangyun Courtyard first." Back at Jiangyun Courtyard, Chingy lit several more braziers in the room and said, "Princess, warm yourself by the fire. Don't catch cold." As night deepened, I lay in bed, tossing and turning, unable to sleep. Early the next morning, just as dawn was breaking, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed from outside the courtyard. Wondering who could be visiting so early, I saw Cui Chinyu enter Jiangyun Courtyard, his clothes covered in snow and wind. I sat up abruptly, asking urgently, "How is Miss Xia?" Cui Chinyu looked at me, his expression as cold as the frost outside the window. He demanded, "Mingyu remains unconscious. The last person she saw was the princess. What exactly did you say to her?" I froze for a moment before realizing, he was suspecting me. He believed I had urged Xia Mingyu to take her own life. I calmly defended myself. I spoke but 2 words. "The carriage driver at the estate can testify." Yet Cui Chingyu's eyes held nothing but distrust. He coldly replied, "As a female general, Mingyu possessed an unyielding spirit. Unless forced by someone wielding power and authority, why would she seek death?" A chill shot through my chest. With a bitter smile, I replied, "You know better than anyone that even when I was bullied in the Cold Palace, I never once harbored ill will toward anyone. Those years in the Cold Palace were truly hellish. Everyone ignored me. Everyone could beat and scold me at will. They replaced my meals with moldy, rock-hard steamed buns. They even poured filthy water onto my bed." Cui Chinyu knew every detail. Had he not leaped into the pond to save my life that day, how could I have ever come to admire him? Yet Cui Chinyu replied coldly, "Time changes, and so do people." He looked at me, his tone icy. This servant feels he never truly understood the princess. With that, Cui Chinyu shot me a chilling glance before turning and leaving. The room felt eerily empty, and I was lost in a daze. I never imagined he saw me this way. Truthfully, even before that commentary appeared, I had already prepared to step aside for everyone. Not only for my family, but also for him. Imperial will is hard to please, and the chessboard is hard to decipher. As a mere pawn, my voluntary removal from the board could resolve everything. 2 days passed, yet Xia Mingyu still hadn't regained consciousness. Rumors swirled throughout the capital, spreading slander about me everywhere. Sitting in the courtyard, I could hear the servants' whispers. One servant said, "General Xia is truly devoted yet ill-fated. She was the one who should have married His Imperial Majesty's tutor." Another servant chimed in, "What a pity. The princess, relying on her royal blood, meddled and broke up the lovers." Chingy, the maid returning from the outer courtyard, was furious. She immediately shooed away the gossiping servant. Then she approached me, curtsied, and said with a smile, "Your Highness, pay no mind to these people. Chingy brings you good news." Curious, I asked, "What good news?" Chingy exclaimed excitedly, "The third prince has returned." My breath caught in surprise. But didn't brother promise Father Emperor he'd never return to the capital unless summoned? Why has he come back suddenly? Seeing my disbelief, Chingy leaned close and whispered in my ear, "The third prince is waiting to see you in the main hall right now." My heart surged with both shock and joy. My once dull eyes instantly brightened. I rose and dashed toward the door. Reaching the doorway, I caught sight of a figure standing tall and imposing. That figure felt both unfamiliar and strangely familiar, making my eyes sting with tears. I murmured, "Brother." Xing Xi turned around. His dark hair was neatly bound, his face as fair as jade. He strode over, ruffled my hair, and smiled. "Qingyu has grown quite tall." My heart tightened. Just as I was about to reply, the narration echoed in my ears once more. "Ladies and gentlemen, behold the blood-stained robe unearthed from Princess Chang'el's tomb." Yet this blood-soaked garment belonged to General Xingxiai, the princess's own brother, during his lifetime. The third prince disobeyed the imperial summons to return to the capital, committing a grave offense against the emperor. Enraged, the emperor ordered him subjected to cruel punishment. After the torture, the third prince was beaten to the brink of death. I stood frozen in place, my body stiffening instantly. Looking closely, I realized my brother's complexion was unusually haggard, pale as paper. A faint, pungent scent of blood lingered in the air. My eyes instantly welled up with tears as I grasped the situation in that instant. "Brother, why did you return to the capital without permission?" I asked anxiously. Xingxiai sighed softly, reached out to gently stroke my nose, and smiled. "If I hadn't come back, you would have been bullied beyond recognition." I couldn't hold back any longer. Choking back tears, I reached up and gently stroked his arm, my voice filled with heartache. "But father punished you." Xingxi's eyes darkened slightly, but he quickly broke into a bright smile again, reassuring me. "Father rewards and punishes fairly. I've already atoned for my crime with military merit. It's all right, it's all right." He added with pride, "You should know, your brother here can take an enemy's head on the battlefield. Not everyone can pull off something so glorious." Xingxiai spoke lightly, but my heart clenched sharply. Charging into battle, leading the charge, such dangerous deeds shouldn't be the responsibility of a prince. Yet for my sake, he became the most overworked, most distant prince of Nanchu. I couldn't help leaning into his embrace, tears welling in my eyes. Xingxiai gently stroked my hair, then suddenly froze as if struck by a thought. "Rumors say Cui Qingyu remains chaste for that female general of the Xie family, never touching you. Is that true?" Xingxiai asked. My body stiffened instantly. I wanted to explain for the greater good, but my mouth opened and closed without words. Seeing my silence, Xingxiai understood the rumors were true. He declared solemnly, "If he wrongs you, I'll use my next military merit to beg Father Emperor to find you another prince consort." I kept my head bowed, my eyes brimming with indescribable bitterness and sorrow. The sun dipped below the western horizon, and dusk settled over the land. After bidding farewell to my imperial brother, I returned to my own courtyard. The moment I pushed open the door, I saw Cui Qingyu standing in the hall, hands clasped behind his back. "Qingyu." I was taken aback by his unexpected presence. A faint chill settled over Cui Qingyu's expression, as if an unbridgeable chasm now separated us. He said coldly, "Mingyu has awakened, but this matter is now common knowledge. I must give the Xie family an explanation." I clenched my sleeve tightly and asked, "How do you intend to explain?" Cui Qingyu's expressionless words pierced my heart like a sharp blade. "With a 10-mile procession of red wedding finery, marry her as your co-wife." In the dead of winter, the surroundings were deathly silent. After a long moment, I finally extricated myself from the tangled whirlpool of emotions and asked hoarsely, "Can't we wait a little longer?" In my heart, I thought, why couldn't he wait until after I was dead to be with Xie Mingyu? Why wait? Cui Qingyu frowned. Even as a co-wife, she would still be a concubine. It would be a great injustice to her. Is she suffering? I gave a bitter smile, lifting my gaze to meet his. Have you ever thought of me? A prince consort taking a co-wife, truly a unique occurrence in this world. Our eyes locked, but Cui Qingyu quickly looked away. He said, "Your Highness, I am considering the princess. Mingyu is unfamiliar with the complexities of wedding customs. Our marriage arrangements will require the princess's personal oversight. This will only highlight the princess's magnanimity and silence the world's criticism." With that, he bowed deeply to me before turning and leaving. A chill crept up from my feet, nearly knocking me off balance. I stared at the direction Cui Qingyu had departed, his figure long vanished, leaving only an endless expanse of snowy night. A surge of congealed blood rose in my throat. I hastily pressed a handkerchief to my mouth as the metallic sweetness spread across my palate. My life was measured in less than 3 months. Yet even these final days could not be exchanged for a single moment of peace. That night, I lay awake until dawn. Early the next morning, Qingyi rushed into my chamber, her face flushed with panic. "Princess!" she cried. "The third prince has been imprisoned in the imperial dungeons." My blood ran cold. I left the estate immediately, racing toward the palace. The eunuch guiding me explained, "The third prince returned victorious from battle, a cause for celebration. But upon learning that the princess consort intends to take a secondary wife, he stormed into the Golden Throne Hall demanding an audience with His Majesty, provoking the Emperor's wrath." My heart sank with dread. The Emperor's Golden Throne Hall never tolerates intruders. My brother's rash intrusion will surely be interpreted by those with ulterior motives as evidence of his own hidden agenda. Inside the Golden Throne Hall, after petitioning for an audience with Father, I knelt straight, pressing my forehead against the cold stone floor, not daring to lift my head. Though Emperor Qing was my father, we had never been close. On the day of my birth, dark clouds obscured the sun, an ill omen. From that day forth, the cold palace became my home. Father became a distant, unreachable presence. "You three siblings remain as harmonious as ever," my father remarked coldly. His voice, laced with fury, boomed from his throne like thunder reverberating through the vast hall. "Sister marries far away to the Xiongnu for her sister's sake. Brother storms the Golden Hall in anger for his sister's sake." Humph! What a touching display of sibling devotion. His face flushed crimson with fury. He grabbed the silver-patterned teacup beside him, raised his arm high, and slammed it down onto the floor tiles beside me. A thunderous crash echoed as shards flew everywhere. Tiny porcelain fragments even splattered onto my skirt hem. "Do you even regard this father of yours with any respect?" The Emperor's eyes blazed with fury, his gaze threatening to consume me. Hearing his thunderous rebuke, I trembled in terror and bowed my head even lower, my forehead nearly touching the floor. As a military commander, my brother should be slaying enemies on the battlefield, defending our nation, not brooding in a cage, I murmured, my voice trembling with a hint of pleading. Today he acted impulsively because of me. Father, punish me alone. I summoned my courage, lifting my head, my eyes filled with resolve. Our family affairs have become the talk of the city. You deserve punishment. Emperor Qing slowly descended from his throne, each step feeling like a stomp on my heart. A chill seeped from his eyes, like winter ice. Qingyu, have you completely forgotten the original purpose behind this marriage to Qingyu? The emperor halted, towering over me with disapproval in his voice. His words sent a chill through my body, a coldness that shot from my feet straight to the top of my head. I never forgot that this marriage to Qingyu had been steeped in calculation and self-interest from the very beginning. On the day the marriage was decreed, my father summoned me with a stern expression and said, "Qingyu, when you go to the Cui household, you must find a legendary jade artifact. For within that object lies a secret capable of upending the entire southern Chu kingdom. Such an item demands my vigilance. As my daughter, you must ease my burden." Thus, as a pawn, I was sent to the Cui household. Yet, after all these days, having searched every corner of the Cui residence, I still hadn't found that heirloom jade. Father. My lips trembled, my body shivered slightly, and I didn't know how to respond. But remembering my mission was for my brother, I steeled myself to plead further. Father, I beg you, for the sake of our bond. My voice choked, eyes brimming with tears. Emperor Qing's expression turned icy. His brows furrowed as he snapped angrily, "Do not address me thus. To me, you are not my child, but a disgrace." The air froze for an instant, as if time itself had halted. After a long pause, Father's golden-threaded dragon boots came to rest before my bowed forehead. Again, his hoarse roar echoed in my ears. "I wish I had strangled you the day you were born." Those final words struck like a blade, freezing the blood in my veins. I thought Father merely disliked me. But it turned out he had wanted me dead from the very beginning. In an instant, heavy memories flooded my mind. My mother, the Empress, was originally a tribute maiden from Lulan. Her beauty was said to rival the nation itself. Father adored her deeply, and thus my sister and brother were born. They too were once the most favored prince and princess of Nanchu. But just a few years later, on the day I was born, the the sky darkened, and black clouds obscured the sun. Enemy forces from the frontier swept back like a dark cloud pressing the border, catching Manchu soldiers unprepared and utterly caught off guard. Some say it was Lolan's treachery, offering a demonic consort to bewitch the emperor's heart and bring ruin to the nation. Thus, my mother and I, a newborn, were banished to the cold palace. My brother and sister were sent to the Empress Dowager's side, kept in lukewarm neglect. My mother, despondent in the cold palace, died a miserable death. I, barely babbling my first words, was forgotten in that desolate corner. Coming to my senses, I knelt with my back straight, fists clenched tightly, filled with stubborn determination. If death could ensure my brother's safety, I would face it without hesitation. Yet Father Emperor waved his sleeve, ordering palace attendants to expel me from the Golden Throne Hall, unwilling to hear another word from me. I knelt in the snow before the Golden Hall, flakes swirling down until they blanketed me. Motionless, I stood like a statue. Night watchmen with lanterns saw me and scornfully detoured, muttering under their breath, "What a jinx," as if I were a plague incarnate. The snow fell relentlessly, its chill steadily eroding my sanity. I dug my nails into my palms until they drew blood, forcing my eyes open. The next day, dawn broke. Court attendants streamed through the palace doors, their voices carrying messages to the emperor to my ears. "Your Majesty, Princess Changle has been kneeling all night, still kneeling in the snow." The palace maid's voice trembled. The emperor's cold, harsh voice echoed, "Let her kneel if she wishes. No one is to help her up." My mind felt dazed, as if my entire being had been frozen solid. My eyelids grew heavier and heavier, my body swaying more and more. I couldn't sleep, couldn't collapse. I had to beg Father to revoke his decree, to spare my brother's punishment. After an unknown span of time, the white haze before my eyes began to scatter, revealing stars. A voice called out beside me, "Princess. Princess." Was it my brother? No, he remained imprisoned. Could it be Cui Qingyu? He alone treated me as a princess. But at this very moment, he should be by Miss Xie's side. I bit my tongue, my mind snapping clear for an instant. A young eunuch stood before me, frowning, and nudged me gently. "Princess, the third prince awaits you at the palace gates," he said urgently. I jolted awake, my spirit instantly lifted. "Brother is out?" The eunuch seemed reluctant to engage, his lips curling in impatience. But after my persistent questioning, he finally replied, "Border conflicts rage incessantly now, the situation is dire. His Majesty has granted the third prince a chance to atone for his sins by serving the Empire, sending him to the frontier to repel the enemy." Hearing this, a heavy weight lifted from my heart, and I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I staggered to my feet, my legs weak, and nearly collapsed forward. A flicker of pity crossed the young eunuch's eyes as he quickly reached out to steady me. Once I regained my balance, I said gratefully, "Thank you." Leaning against the palace wall, I brushed the snow from my clothes. The snow was bitterly cold, stinging my hands. I hesitated as I walked toward the palace gates. Snowflakes swirled down thickly, blanketing everything in silver white. I watched Xingxiai in the distance, clad in black armor. His posture was straight and tall, like a towering mountain. Instantly, my eyes stung with tears. I whispered softly, "Brother." He had just been released from prison, blood was still seeping through his armor, staining a patch of fabric a deep crimson. I dared not take another step forward, my feet feeling as if they were nailed to the ground. I feared that seeing him too clearly would make me rush forward, grab my brother, and pull off his armor to examine his wounds. But how could my proud and dashing brother ever allow his most cherished sister to witness his bloodied wounds? Xingxiai strode before me, his gaze unwavering yet tender. He handed me the crimson silk ribbon in his hand and said, "Qingyu, do not weep. I went to win military honors for you. When I return, I'll make sure you're treated with the utmost honor." His selflessness filled me with such deep emotion and guilt that I felt utterly overwhelmed. I blurted out, "Brother, whether it's glory or military honors, they're all yours. You've already done so much for me." I paused, then added, "From now on, whatever you do or think, don't do it for me. Just consider yourself. You must take good care of yourself." The thought of my own dwindling days made the lump in my throat grow heavier. Worried, I added, when you return victorious next time, don't defy father again. After all, he is the ruler of a nation, and his temper is fierce. Xingxiai pinched my cheek and smiled. Silly little sister, you're still just like when we were children, your cheeks are soft and pliable, like dough you can knead at will. He continued, father and I have reached an agreement. Cui Qingyu will not be allowed to take a secondary wife. Rest assured. You are the princess of Nanchu, of noble birth. You shouldn't be controlled by your own husband. If they love each other, let them love without recognition. Outsiders can't interfere anyway. The only woman in the imperial tutor's residence will ever be you. This is your brother's promise to you. Xingxiai instructed me in detail, his words carrying the unwavering certainty of a military order. I took the treasured little wooden puppet from my bosom and pressed it into his arms. Brother, keep this. Seeing it will be like I'm right beside you. I brushed the snowflakes from his armor and forced a smile. Come back safely, and remember to tie another red ribbon on the ginkgo tree. Cross my heart, it's our promise. As he finished, a flicker passed through Xingxi's eyes. He reached out, ruffled my hair, and said, I will. Little sister, just wait for your brother to return with gifts for you. Clutching the wooden puppet tightly, he turned abruptly and strode away with long, swift steps. Watching his retreating figure, my tears finally fell uncontrollably. This parting today would be our final farewell. Perhaps by the time he returned to the capital, I would already be dead. The imperial tutor's residence, Jiangyun Courtyard. After kneeling all night in the snow, my body felt off the moment I returned home. My whole body alternated between chills that made me shiver uncontrollably and waves of fever that left my face flushed crimson. The maid Qingyi rushed out anxiously to find a physician for me. Lying in bed, I felt groggy and dazed, my mind fogged as if stuffed with paste. A sound came from outside the room. The door creaked open, and Cui Qingyu, reeking of alcohol, stumbled in. His eyes were bloodshot, his steps unsteady. I looked at him weakly and asked, what happened? He walked straight to the bedside, gazing at me coldly, his voice dripping with scorn. The third prince petitioned the emperor today. He demands the princess conceive before permitting Mingyu to enter the Cui household. Are you satisfied now? My heart clenched, my expression shifting to shock. How could this be? Was this the agreement my brother and father emperor had reached? Before I could speak, Cui Qingyu sat down, pinning me between his body and the bed frame. His large hands roughly tore open my undergarments as he leaned in close. Tonight, this servant shall fulfill the princess's wish. My world collapsed. My heart felt as if it were being stabbed repeatedly by a knife, a dull ache spreading throughout my entire body. I could no longer hold back, and tears streamed down my face. Choking back sobs, I cried out, Sister. Where are you? Please come save me. Heavy snow fell, blanketing the entire world in white. Qingyi finally found me and hurriedly wrapped me in a warm cloak. Her voice trembled as she said, Princess. She trembled at the sight of the mass grave, her body shaking uncontrollably. I grasped her hand, my expression calmer than I had ever been. I whispered softly, Please watch over my elder sister. Don't let the wild dogs carry her away. She's so pitiful. Qingyi nodded, her eyes reddened, and said, Princess, rest assured. I will definitely take good care of Princess Chang'e. I clutched my sister's small wooden doll, squeezing it tightly in my palm as if doing so could grant me strength. Imperial Palace, Golden Throne Hall. I knelt before the hall, the oppressive atmosphere inside suffocating. With each heart-wrenching sob, I questioned Emperor Xing seated on the throne, Why, Your Majesty, will you not grant Princess Chang'e a proper burial? She died so tragically, having sacrificed herself for the nation through a political marriage. I continued, He refuses to let me call him father, yet he must acknowledge my sister's royal status. The peace princess who perished among the Xiongnu has returned to her homeland. She deserves burial in the imperial mausoleum, a return to her roots. Emperor Xing propped his forehead, a fleeting, unreadable emotion crossing his eyes. That body was beyond recognition. It was not our southern Chu princess. Stop this nonsense. I pulled the small wooden doll from my bosom, my swollen hands trembling uncontrollably. This was my sister's most treasured possession. This is the little doll you and mother carved for her. The body may be unrecognizable, but the doll cannot lie. I cradled the tiny figure in both hands, my voice shaking as I spoke each word deliberately. Your Majesty may despise me, but why must my sister, even in death, be denied a proper burial? My eyes reddened, tears welling up, my voice a mix of accusation and plea. As I spoke, my eyes stung anew, tears streaming down my cheeks. With a soft plop, one fell onto the little wooden figure. Choking back sobs, I continued, before I was born, my sister was your most cherished princess. You shouldn't have let her be torn limb from limb, left without a proper burial. Emperor Shing listened to my words, then fell silent for a long time. The candle flame flickered uncertainly beside us. He slowly lifted his eyes to meet mine, his voice icy as he said, she fled the Xiongnu royal family, not only losing her virtue but also bringing shame upon our southern Shu kingdom. I cannot acknowledge her, nor will I ever. His words rang out with unwavering certainty, each syllable like a sharp blade piercing my heart. Bone-chilling despair swept over me in an instant. I stood frozen in place, dazed for a long while, until the tear tracks on my face dried. Slowly, I pressed my palms together against my forehead, then bowed my head low. With measured movements, I performed 3 kowtows, completing the farewell ritual. Before my elder sister departed years ago, she also paid her respects to you in this manner, I murmured softly, my voice heavy with sorrow. This bow now serves as Qingyu bidding farewell to you on my sister's behalf. Henceforth, my sister and I shall have no father-daughter bond with your Majesty, only the formalities of sovereign and subject remain. With that, I knelt 3 times and bowed 3 times before rising slowly. The emperor's face remained dark and unsmiling. He did not grow angry at my words, merely waved his hand, signaling for me to leave. Outside the city walls, the cold wind wailed, as if weeping for my sister's fate. Kneeling beside the freshly dug grave, I gently lifted her favorite indigo-dyed robe and dressed her in it with tender care. Sister, you must wait for me on the path to the underworld. My fingers traced her icy form as tears once more blurred my vision. Digging the grave had been exhausting, yet I insisted on burying her myself. Staring at the blank stone of the tomb, I sank into deep contemplation. Snapping back to reality, I gnawed at my finger in grief, using my blood as ink to write my sister's name. But my hands were numb with cold, making it impossible to write clearly. Just then, a figure approached from behind. Cui Qingyu walked over holding a charcoal stick and said, "Let me help you." Startled, I struggled to stand. But I stumbled, nearly falling. Cui Qingyu acted swiftly, reaching out to steady me. I quickly pulled away from his touch, murmuring, "Thank you." "It's nothing," Cui Qingyu replied, his tone tinged with complexity. I tidied the weeds around the mound, carefully brushing the frost and snow from the gravestone. Cui Qingyu stood silently beside me. I couldn't tell if he was watching me or my sister's grave. At that moment, it no longer mattered. After tidying the grave, I slowly climbed to the mountaintop and gazed at the towering ginkgo tree by the capital's gate. Red silk ribbons still fluttered from its snow-laden branches. My heart ached as I murmured, "Brother, sister has returned." Yet her spirit remained forever trapped on the journey back to the capital, never to return. In a daze, I saw villagers tearing down the red ribbons and replacing them with plain white cloth. My heart tightened, and I hurriedly asked, "Who ordered this change?" Then, the museum narration I hadn't heard in ages echoed in my ears once more. On the winter solstice of the 25th year of the Yuan He era, the eldest brother of Princess Changel, the third Prince Xinxi, returned victorious. Mounted on his warhorse, he severed the enemy commander's head, cementing his reputation as the South Chu dynasty's most valiant and undefeated prince. Hearing the narration, I looked again at the white silk ribbon hanging from the tree. A sudden unease gripped my heart. "This is bad," I exclaimed. "Something terrible has happened." Then I hurried down the mountain. Within the city walls, everyone had donned plain white cloth garments, murmuring among themselves. "The border general won the battle and returned victorious," one commoner remarked. "Then why did the emperor decree mourning throughout the city?" Another asked in confusion. White lanterns hung along both sides of the capital streets, creating a grand yet mournful spectacle. As I walked along the winding path of snow toward the city gate, my heart grew numb. The Guangyang gate stood wide open. Citizens in mourning robes parted to the sides, making way for soldiers carrying a black coffin, which was slowly carried through the gate. Step by step, I approached and saw the tablet before the coffin engraved with General Xingxiai, the illustrious warrior. All surrounding sounds seemed to recede 1,000 miles away. Staggering forward, I blocked their path. I tried to lift the coffin lid, but the leading soldier stopped me. "Let me see him, just once," I pleaded, sobbing, heedless of my princess's dignity. If my brother won the battle, why would he lie here? The lead soldier, unable to bear my distress, informed me in a hoarse voice, the third prince was struck by an enemy arrow. Though it missed vital organs, the arrow was coated in a deadly poison. My body swayed, nearly toppling me. Cui Qingyu behind me reached out to steady me, saying nothing. A soldier approached with solemn expression, carefully cradling a blood-stained wooden puppet in his hands. Kneeling on one knee, he handed it to me in a hushed voice. "Princess, His Highness specifically requested we give this to you in his final moments." My gaze fixed on the puppet as my hands began to tremble uncontrollably. Slowly, I reached out and took it, my fingers shaking. In that instant, tears blurred my vision. Unable to hold back any longer, all strength seemed to drain from my body. My legs gave way, and I collapsed before the coffin. "Brother! Brother!" I sobbed, my voice choked with endless grief. At that moment, I could see nothing. The surrounding clamor seemed to fade away, and I heard nothing. Only a tearing pain in my chest, so intense it nearly choked the life from me. Emotions surged like a raging tide within my chest. Finally, before everyone, a mouthful of crimson blood spurted from my lips. "Princess!" Cui Qingyu's anxious voice rang in my ears. Before my vision faded to black, I fell into a cool embrace. After that, I drifted into a long, hazy dream. In the dream, Xingxiai shed his blood-stained armor, his face bearing the unique innocence of youth. He sat beside me, sunlight casting beautiful contours across his features. Smiling, he offered me a grasshopper made from dried weeds in his palm and whispered softly, "When I'm not by your side, if anyone tries to bully you, remember to hide. Don't fight back, understand?" My heart warmed, and I unconsciously rested my head on his shoulder, whining, "Qingyu isn't afraid. Big brother will always protect me and stay by my side, right?" Xingxiai ruffled my hair and smiled, though his eyes held a trace of resignation. "Little sister, no one can stay by someone's side forever. Life is like a journey, there will always come a time for parting." In the next instant, his face gradually blurred, dissolving into a shadowy figure. "Brother!" I cried out in terror. The dream shattered abruptly. I sat bolt upright in bed, my body ice-cold, soaked through with cold sweat. The bed curtains, embroidered with intricate golden patterns, shimmered faintly in the dim light. I froze. This wasn't the imperial tutor's residence. Was it all a dream? I wondered silently. Perhaps I hadn't married Cui Qingyu yet, still residing in the princess's palace. My brother was alive and well, and my sister was still by my side. Just then, a matron entered on tiptoe, carrying a steaming bowl of medicinal broth. She smiled and said, "Your Highness has awakened? His Majesty decreed you shall convalesce in the palace, and the prince consort will reside here with you." I froze for a moment. Logically, being able to spend every day with the young man I'd admired since childhood should have filled me with joy. Yet at that moment, my heart felt like stagnant water, utterly still. More like a dead person, completely devoid of life. "Thank you for His Majesty's kindness," I murmured weakly. Outside, the snowstorm grew fiercer, flurries pelting against the window panes. Cui Qingyu stayed with me in the princess's residence, sometimes quietly reading or writing, other times attentively serving tea and medicine. Yet throughout all this, his face remained utterly expressionless. I knew this wasn't his choice. But I myself had no heart to consider his feelings. The matron often visited me, chattering on about trivial matters from other palaces. "Princess, this winter is bitterly cold. The Empress has fallen ill. Her niece has been attending to her in the Queen's palace these past few days," the matron said while tidying the bedding. I was lost in thought for a long moment before lifting my gaze to Cui Qingyu, who stood nearby holding a bowl of medicine. "Is the Empress's niece Xia Mingyu?" I asked softly. He froze, his hand gripping the medicine spoon unconsciously. His voice sounded unnatural. Yes. I pressed further. Xia Mingyu has come to the palace. Won't you go see her? Cui Qingyu's eyes darkened. He avoided my question, replying solemnly, His Majesty commanded me to attend to the princess. I shall fulfill my duty. Yet from that day onward, his visits grew increasingly rare. From once a day, it became every other day, and later, even every third day. Watching his departing figure, the matron sighed deeply and spoke bluntly, compared to the princess's haggard appearance, the vibrant and radiant Miss Xia is naturally more beloved. I pressed my pale lips together, my heart sinking into silence. I said nothing. That day, Cui Qingyu came again. He stood outside the bed curtains. Through the fabric, I removed the golden hairpin from my hair. I extended my hand, offering the pin to him in a calm tone, This belongs to its rightful owner. I return it. Cui Qingyu did not take it. His expression was complex as he looked at me, his brow slightly furrowed. Since this servant has given it to the princess, there is no need for return. Keep it, princess. My tone was unprecedentedly calm. This is your Cui family heirloom. I return it to you, and we are even. Henceforth, you and I have no further connection. Cui Qingyu fell silent for a moment before lifting the curtain to look at me, his eyes filled with confusion. What does the princess mean? Why speak such words suddenly? I pushed the hairpin forward a few inches and said firmly, It means divorce. I release you. Go pursue what you desire. Complex emotions churned in Cui Qingyu's eyes. After a long moment, he slowly took the hairpin and turned to leave. I watched his retreating figure, my consciousness growing hazy. I thought, if I return these things now, Cui Qingyu won't use the golden hairpin to kill me. In the days that followed, I was lucid for only a few hours each day. The palace attendants whispered among themselves, saying I often called out my brother and sister's names in my dreams. I forced a faint smile, its edges laced with bitterness. In my dreams these past days, I often saw my brother and sister. We laughed and chatted in those dreams, even agreeing to meet by the bridge of forgetfulness to drink the soup of mangpa together. But now, holding the glass cup, I lacked the strength to lift it to my lips for even a sip of water. My strength waned further. My fingers suddenly went limp, and the cup clattered to the floor. Clang! At that moment, that voice from beyond the heavens sounded in my ears once more. Behold, this is a half-shattered glass cup. Archaeologists speculate it was used by the princess in her final moments. Historic records state that after the princess's passing, the prince consort had all her personal belongings buried with her. Some say the prince's actions stemmed from his deep affection for the princess. Consider his daily care and devotion, and his courageous defense in critical moments, all undeniable expressions of his love for her. Others scoffed in rebuttal, humph. As the imperial tutor of Nanchu, he remarried so soon after the princess's death. Clearly, he found her belongings unlucky. Gazing at the shattered glass fragments scattered across the floor, my head felt heavy and dull. Scanning the surroundings, I saw no trace of the matron. Only a cold, desolate atmosphere permeated the space. In the distance, dazzling fireworks lit up a small patch of sky. The faint sounds of revelry, music and laughter drifted toward me. I had almost forgotten. Tonight was New Year's Eve. In the past, when I spent the New Year's Eve in the cold palace, my elder brother and sister would secretly bring gifts to visit me. Little sister, look what nice things we brought for you. My sister smiled as she handed the gift to me. That's right, little sister will definitely love it, my brother added with a smile. The three of us would bow before our mother's grave. Mother, may your spirit in heaven protect our family, I would say devoutly. Tonight, I stand alone to keep vigil. Supporting myself against the wall, I leave the hall. My mother died in the cold palace and was buried there. Stained by the demon concubine slander, she was denied burial in the imperial mausoleum and forbidden a memorial tablet. Mother, it's so unfair how they treated you, I whispered softly. A desolate patch in the palace's corner became her final resting place. The winter wind bit like a knife across my face. No stars or moon graced the sky, as if shrouded by a vast black cloth. The palace path stretched dark and endless, its terminus invisible. I walked step by step, no longer afraid of the darkness as I had been in childhood. Mother, brother, sister, all had once held my hand along this very path. Running my hand along the red wall, I murmured, "You too must have touched this red wall." At the overgrown grassland by the back gate of the coal palace, I reached my mother's grave. With effort, I knelt on both knees, a sharp pain shooting through them. Running my hand over the small mound, I drifted into memories of times with my mother. When I was young, she taught me embroidery. "Qingyu, look, you must stitch like this, one stitch at a time," she demonstrated patiently. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't master it. "Mother, I dislike embroidery," I said, frowning. For the square embroidery frame felt like the cold palace itself, trapping both my mother and me within its confines. I longed to take her out, but father had long forgotten us in this desolate palace. Later, mother fell gravely ill, coughing blood as she lay in bed. "Mother, how do you feel?" I asked anxiously. Yet no one came. Young and helpless, I groveled before the palace servants, even kneeling and kowtowing. "Please, I beg you, call the imperial physician to treat mother," I cried. Mother scolded me, "How can a princess kneel before those servants?" Stubborn as I was then, I insisted. "They said if I kneel, they'll summon the physician to treat you." "If it means mother will recover, I'd kneel forever," I declared resolutely. That day, mother gazed deeply at me, her eyes ringed with red. I couldn't understand her look then, but now I grasp it. Once, I'd kneel to save mother. Later, my elder brother and sister would walk paths they never would have chosen, all to preserve my dignity as princess. "Mother, Xingbai has taken my brothers and sisters away." I knelt down, resting my head against the earthen mound, as if nestling in my mother's embrace once more. The snow and ice were thick, yet I felt no cold. "Sister said she would return to see me when spring blossoms," I choked out. But winter wasn't even over when the Xiongnu sent her body back, dumped in the mass grave. Brother said he'd drive away the enemy soldiers at the frontier and return victorious. My voice trembled. But he was carried away in a black coffin by soldiers to the imperial mausoleum. Before I could finish, my breath became ragged, and I coughed violently. I raised my hand to cover my mouth, yet dark blood still seeped through my fingers, dripping onto the ice and snow. Red and white mingled, staining the ground like a plum blossom imprint. My eyelids grew heavier and heavier. Nestled beside mother's grave, I had no strength left to rise. "Little sister." In my daze, it seemed someone was calling my name. With great effort, I opened my eyes to see my elder sister standing before me, dressed in peach-colored court robes, her face radiant with a smile. "Little sister, we've come back to see you," she said gently. The clatter of hooves grew closer. My brother, clad in armor, dismounted from his horse and waved at me with a smile. "Little sister, don't be afraid. Big brother is here," he called out loudly. My mother, who had been lying weakly on her bed, now seemed light as a feather, reaching out her hand to me. "Qingyu, come to mother," she murmured softly. This scene, which I had longed for years, had finally arrived. Chaotic memories surged forth. 7 years ago, when we first met, Chui Qingyu had also leaped into the lake, reaching out his hand to me. "Princess, grab my hand," Chui Qingyu had shouted. In the water, our hair intertwined, tangled together. Chui Qingyu, peerless on the path, became my life from that day forward. Yet, the fleeting romance was his, and the searing heartache was also his. I closed my eyes, tears falling silently. Therefore, that voice from beyond the heavens, its commentary wasn't entirely correct. Without the golden hairpin, Chui Qingyu wouldn't have borne the slander of attempting to assassinate the princess. I murmured softly. "Chui Qingyu, I've accompanied you this far. May your heart find fulfillment, and your wishes come true. From this day forward, I too am free." Before the overgrown graves, snow swirled down in the wind. Fireworks blazed brilliantly over the golden hall, as everyone in the palace celebrated New Year's Eve. Watching the sky filled with fireworks, seeing my elder brother and sister approaching me, and my mother, the Empress Dowager, bending down to gently cradle me in her arms, I slowly closed my eyes. How wonderful, this year, we're spending New Year's Eve together as a family. Snow and frost swirled. The little princess, covered in blood, reached out a hand that fell heavily to the ground. Meanwhile, in Beijing, at the Nanchu Museum, the docent approached the coffin of Princess Changel. The world said the prince consort disliked the princess. The guide said, "Everyone, look at this. This is Princess Changel's coffin." People always thought the prince consort didn't like the princess. But when archaeologists opened the coffin lid, they discovered that after his death, the prince consort was buried together with the princess in the same tomb. The guide continued, but when archaeologists opened the coffin lid, they made a startling discovery: the prince consort and the princess were buried together. And on the coffin lid, they found these words. The narrator raised his voice. Moreover, there was this inscription on the coffin lid. His voice grew fainter and fainter, gradually fading into the air. Only faint echoes could be heard. "My wife, Kyo, I regret this life." Archaeologists confirmed these 8 characters were personally inscribed by the prince consort. The 25th year of the Yuanhe era, New Year's Eve. In the Golden Hall, multicolored fireworks burst brilliantly across the night sky, radiating dazzling light. Within the hall, guests clinked cups and exchanged toasts. Melodious songs and dances intertwined with the cheerful notes of Xing and Shao, creating an atmosphere of extraordinary festivity. Emperor Sheng and the Empress sat enthroned upon the main dais. They sipped wine leisurely, admiring the splendid dance performances while gazing out at the dazzling fireworks beyond the palace walls. Cui Qingyu sat among the guests, his mind elsewhere. His gaze drifted involuntarily toward the dark, silent princess's residence nearby, his eyes churning with emotions like turbulent waves. Tonight was a palace family banquet, and he attended as the consort of Princess Changel. An elderly attendant had been sent to summon Princess Qingyu to join the feast, yet after a long wait, the princess remained nowhere to be seen. Just then, Xian Mingyu glided over with light steps, her eyes brimming with unabashed affection, fixed directly on Cui Qingyu. "Qingyu," Xian Mingyu murmured softly, "I know you're still angry that I used my influence to secure the imperial decree marrying me to you." Cui Qingyu's brows furrowed slightly, but he remained silent. Xian Mingyu continued, "But loving someone, if you cannot stay together forever, leaves a lingering regret." Raising her cup, she gently clinked it against Cui Qingyu's, her tone brimming with unwavering confidence. "This year's New Year's Eve wish, I want to grow old with you." Cui Qingyu's brows knitted tightly. His gaze fixed on the cup, yet he did not drink the wine within. An inexplicable image surfaced in his mind, him and Qingyu walking side by side in the snow earlier, flurries settling on their shoulders. That woman had smiled at him, saying, "Sharing the snow today counts as growing old together." Now, while the palace bustled with New Year's Eve revelry, she remained alone in the quiet princess's residence, her presence nowhere to be seen. Suddenly, strength drained from Cui Qingyu's right hand. The wine cup clattered to the floor with a thud, shattering into pieces. A dull ache gripped his heart, an inexplicable emptiness rising within him. He looked at his now empty right hand and instinctively clenched it tighter, yet felt he could grasp nothing. Without knowing why, he wanted to go see that woman, to tell her, Happy New Year's Eve. Even though the golden hairpin had been returned and their feelings severed, nominally, he remained the consort of Princess Changel, and that woman was still the imperial tutor's wife, his lawful spouse. Just then, a commotion erupted outside. A frantic wet nurse rushed in, collapsing to her knees before the hall with a thud. Her voice trembled as she cried out, "Princess Changel has passed away." Boom! A thunderous explosion erupted as fireworks suddenly bloomed, their dazzling light illuminating Cui Qingyu's deathly pale face. On the way to the cold palace, Cui Qingyu's confidant hurried over, reporting the findings of his recent investigations. "Your servant investigated the Imperial Medical Bureau and discovered the princess's illness was not a simple cold, but poisoning," the aide stated. Cui Qingyu's heart instantly clenched. He urgently demanded, "What poison?" "Luo Hui poison. It causes mental confusion, complete physical weakness, and unconsciousness. The victim will die within 3 months." The aide answered. Cui Qingyu's heartstrings tightened instantly. Countless anxieties and confusions surged forth, as if struck by a heavy stone. His gait became hurried, nearly stumbling. Those behind him watched him, their faces filled with puzzlement. Someone murmured, "Why is the imperial tutor reacting so strongly?" Princess Xingqingyu has never been favored by the emperor since childhood, another chimed in. Rumors abound that the emperor betrothed her to humiliate the imperial tutor. The southern Chu kingdom's military might has waned, yet its civil officials remain numerous. Among them, however, a prodigy like Cui Chenyu shines like the moon among countless stars. Isn't it better that the princess is dead? Another voice chimed in. Snow continued to fall relentlessly, yet the palace remained a sea of red walls and green tiles. Snow piled on the eaves was swiftly cleared by palace servants climbing ladders to sweep it clean. Occasionally, faint whispers could be heard. The 9th princess is dead, a young palace maid murmured. Who is she? The emperor has so many princesses, another young maid asked. The one on the left replied sourly, the one betrothed to the imperial tutor. The other girl's eyes widened with excitement. Good heavens! Then I might have a chance. An older matron hurried over, shot them a sharp glare, and snapped, Finished your work already, or are you just gossiping? Everyone immediately fell silent and returned to their tasks. The matron looked at them and sighed helplessly. Dusk gradually fell, casting a warm glow over the palace. The snow on the ground sparkled with fine, scattered light. The emperor ordered the princess's body to be returned to the imperial tutor's residence. Cui Qingyu stood motionless within the funeral hall, his gaze fixed intently on Xingqingyu's body. His hands unconsciously clenched his sleeves, knuckles turning slightly white from the pressure. The princess lay there peacefully, as if merely immersed in a deep slumber. Her blood-stained cuffs clung tightly to her slender wrist bones, revealing a pair of hands as white and delicate as jade. Those hands, which might once have tenderly caressed flowers and plants, now held no life. Raise the white banners, Cui Qingyu commanded coldly, his voice as icy as water. In the deathly silence, a servant couldn't help but clasp his hands and speak cautiously. Your Excellency, His Majesty decreed that the princess is an ill-omened person and cannot be buried in the imperial mausoleum. Where shall we bury the princess? Cui Qingyu's expression remained impassive as he replied indifferently, Hold the funeral for now. I must seek an audience with His Majesty. The servant hastily responded, Yes, sir. Cui Qingyu draped a black cloak over his shoulders, its fabric fluttering softly in the breeze. He turned and walked toward the imperial palace. An ill-omened person, such words could only intimidate the ignorant masses. He thought coldly to himself, if spirits and gods truly existed, why had the emperor of Nanchu, whose hands were stained with countless innocent souls, not yet received his retribution? He intended to plead for the 9th princess. In doing so, he could at least offer some closure for the days they had shared as husband and wife. As night fell, the golden hall remained brightly lit. Cui Qingyu stood outside the hall when a eunuch cautiously emerged. The eunuch whispered, Your Excellency, His Majesty does not wish to see anyone at this hour. If you have no urgent business, I advise you to return to your quarters. This was entirely expected, and Cui Qingyu showed no disappointment, merely nodding indifferently. Then, he turned and headed toward the inner palace. The eunuch who watched him leave was stunned. He immediately ran forward to block his path, urgently saying, Your Excellency, you're going the wrong way. This way leads out of the palace. The eunuch pointed toward the imposing palace gates. Cui Qingyu adjusted his wide sleeves, his handsome face expressionless. According to our dynasty's laws, all funerals for noble women in the capital must be decided by the empress. What is wrong with me seeking her out? Just as with his marriage to Xingqingyu, every step, the betrothal, the auspicious date selection, had been approved by the empress. At this thought, Cui Qingyu paused, startled. Why had he suddenly recalled his marriage to Xingqingyu? When clearly, he had previously only found the wedding rituals tedious, harboring no anticipation whatsoever for this mismatched union. Snow continued to fall, blanketing the ground in a thick layer. As Cui Qingyu walked on, it suddenly dawned on him, perhaps, just perhaps, he cared far too much about Xingqingyu. The Xie family of the capital was a name even Cui Qingyu respected deeply. In the past, Empress Xie's father and grandfather held the rank of duke, their entire family bathed in glory and prestige. Fengyi Palace was in sight. Why has the imperial tutor come to seek me out? The empress studied him closely, a smile playing at the corners of her eyes. Didn't you dislike the 9th princess? Cui Qingyu lowered his head slightly, his long lashes casting a faint shadow. He replied, Your Majesty possesses long ears and flying eyes. Though flattered, the noble woman seated upon the phoenix throne offered not even a flicker of a smile. Secrets held no place within the palace. The empress knew full well that he had once sought to marry Xie Mingyu. Gazing at the graceful and elegant imperial tutor before her, her thoughts drifted to the emperor in the imperial study. A faint sigh escaped her lips. You men truly say one thing and do another. Cui Qingyu replied indifferently, given the circumstances, if the ninth princess is not buried, she can only be enshrined in the Cui family's ancestral hall. Clink. A crisp sound echoed. Cui Qingyu looked up to see a jade cup had fallen to the floor, lying flat against the ground. A flash of red emerged from between the eaves pillars, revealing Xie Mingyu's delicate, exquisite face. Xie Mingyu gazed at the carpet stained dark by spilled tea and said, "You caused me to break the jade cup." The bitter scent of medicine filled the air. Cui Qingyu's expression remained calm and inscrutable as he inquired with proper courtesy, "Has the empress's illness not yet improved?" The empress, no longer the aloof figure of moments before, wore a hint of sorrow as she replied, "My illness is one of the heart." Xie Mingyu continued, "I've heard that the sound of the qin can heal. Minister Cui, your skill is renowned. Might I have the honor of hearing you play today?" The empress gave a faint, melancholy smile and nodded. In moments, palace attendants brought in an ancient zither with utmost care. Exquisitely carved peach blossom mother-of-pearl inlays adorned its body, their intricate patterns shimmering softly in the candlelight. The attendants placed the instrument gently upon the table, their movements delicate as if afraid to disturb this delicate artifact. Cui Qingyu, observing this, promptly bowed with hands clasped in a respectful gesture, his etiquette impeccable. Then, with measured steps, he walked over and sat down beside the zither. First, he raised his left hand, his fingers lightly touching the strings. He plucked them sparingly. The crisp notes, like birdsong in the mountain woods at dawn, instantly brought a sense of clarity to the mind, lingering in everyone's ears. Then his right hand descended, its wide sleeves billowing like dancing clouds at the horizon. A celestial melody poured forth from his fingers, flowing like murmuring water, like a gentle breeze. Xie Mingyu, a military officer by nature, had never delved deeply into the study of music. Yet now, she found the sound utterly enchanting, a ripple of emotion stirring within her heart. Instinctively, she lifted her gaze toward her aunt, Empress Xia. Yet she saw the empress slowly close her eyes, and crystal-clear tears trickling down the corners of her eyes. Xie Mingyu's heart skipped a beat. She wondered silently, "Why is my aunt weeping?" When Cui Qingyu finished playing, the empress slowly rose with the support of her palace maids. Her steps were light, her expression tinged with melancholy. As she walked toward the side hall, she murmured softly, "Before I entered the palace, I too loved playing the zither dearly. But later, my heart could no longer find peace. This zither, I shall bestow it upon Minister Cui." With that, the empress's figure gradually disappeared behind the rosewood screen. Cui Qingyu hastily bowed his hands in gratitude, his demeanor respectful. Xie Mingyu watched him, a sudden wave of sadness welling up within her. She murmured silently to herself, "I never truly understood him." Lost in thought, she watched as Cui Qingyu rose to leave. For some reason, Xie Mingyu's heart tightened, and she hurried after him. Chasing him down the long palace path, the biting cold wind lashed her face, stinging her cheeks. She couldn't help but ask, "Are you saddened by the princess's death?" Cui Qingyu's footsteps halted abruptly, his body stiffening slightly. Night had deepened, the cold wind raging like a roaring beast. Pure white snowflakes drifted down like shards of jade scattered from the heavens. In the night's embrace, Xie Mingyu's long eyebrows arched like clouds, thick and graceful, resembling a streak of sunset glow on the horizon. Her jet-black hair cascaded like a waterfall, softly draping over her shoulders. Without her military uniform, her features lost some of their sharpness and lethal aura. Her heroic eyes and brows now held a touch more gentle beauty. Cui Qingyu slowly turned to face her, his voice calm as he replied, "I only wanted to give her a place to call home." Truthfully, it wasn't exactly heartbreak, but his mood felt inexplicably strange. Recalling the sight of that cold, stiff corpse, he couldn't help but wonder, was that emaciated woman truly Xing Qingyu? Was it really the princess who had once slapped him, returned his golden hairpin, and bid him farewell? Lost in thought, Chui Qingyu snapped back to reality only to find Xie Mingyu staring intently at him. She spoke earnestly, enunciating each word. Qingyu, you should be happy. Xie Mingyu continued her explanation. You should be happy about the princess's death, and happy about your freedom. Chui Qingyu remained silent for a moment, saying nothing. He simply hugged his chin, turned, and walked away, his back appearing somewhat desolate. At the palace gates, the carriage had been waiting for him for quite some time. The coachman sat up front, waiting quietly. Chui Qingyu approached the carriage, stepping onto the stone bench to climb aboard. Yet for some reason, his spirits remained low. The faint, monotonous rumble of the turning wheels reached his ears. Seated inside, he closed his eyes slightly, his mind swirling with thoughts. He mused, perhaps the recent heavy workload had simply left him exhausted, hence his gloom. Yet, when he opened his eyes again, he murmured softly to himself, self-deception. Returning to the imperial tutor's residence, Chui Qingyu walked straight into his room. He reached up to remove his official cap, his movements carrying a hint of weariness. Then, he slipped off his purple official robe, its edges embroidered with silver thread. The robe was of exquisite quality, shimmering with a luxurious sheen under the lamplight. He changed into plain robes, their simple color giving off an especially cold aura. Then, he lay down on the bed, alone. He closed his eyes, trying to fake sleep. In the room, the faint incense from the censer slowly filled the air, its scent swirling around him, enveloping him completely. Xing Qingyu was dead. The emperor's hidden pawn, who had been secretly investigating here, had finally been removed. Knock knock. A muffled knock sounded at the door. Chui Qingyu asked coldly, "What is it?" The servant replied stiffly, "Your Excellency, it is nearly the 4th watch. Court is about to begin. Are you still going to sleep?" Without opening his eyes, Chui Qingyu said flatly, "Inform the court I am taking leave." Morning leave. The servant departed upon hearing this. Yet, even as dawn broke, Chui Qingyu had not slept. He draped himself in a fox fur robe. Soft and warm, it could not dispel the chill within his heart. He strode out the door to find the courtyard blanketed in a swirling white landscape. The winter wind, the coldest of all, cut like an icy blade, stinging his face. Standing in the courtyard, Chui Qingyu found himself lost in thought. Was the imperial palace's cold palace also this bone-chillingly cold? Just then, Qingyi approached. She took small steps to stand before Chui Qingyu, performed a curtsy, then she stood quietly to one side. Her eyes were red, as if she had been crying for a long time, with slight swelling around her eye sockets. Chui Qingyu couldn't help but ask, "What's wrong?" Qingyi's gaze fell on his face, her voice tinged with a slight choke. This servant was just thinking of the princess. She continued, "After the princess died, she didn't even have a place to return to." Snow fluttered down from the sky, settling on Chui Qingyu's shoulders. The falling snow seemed to lend his expression a touch of coldness. The moment Qingyi spoke, the memory of that pale face returned to his mind. He murmured, "This is all I can do." After all, Chui Qingyu knew deep down that he owed Xing Qingyu nothing. Yet despite his words, an inexplicable heaviness spread through his heart like a dark cloud that refused to dissipate. Qingyi stood beside him, her expression blank for a moment. Her gaze grew distant, her lips parted slightly as if she wanted to speak but couldn't find the words. Chui Qingyu, ever perceptive, instantly sensed her sorrow. Frowning, he turned to leave in long strides, unwilling to be entangled in this turmoil of sorrow. "Your Excellency, please wait." Qingyi's urgent cry echoed behind him. Chui Qingyu didn't pause, continuing forward. Seeing this, Qingyi raised her voice, calling out loudly, "Ever since the princess's marriage, her smiles have grown fewer and fewer. Have you not noticed, Your Excellency? She was once such a cheerful soul." Choi Sungwoo still did not pause. Snow had already settled thickly on his fox fur coat, and his footprints deepened with each step. Qingyi bit her lip and continued, "When the harsh winter arrived, the princess fell so ill she could scarcely breathe, lying awake night after sleepless night. And you weren't by her side then either, Your Excellency." Chui Qingyu still didn't turn back, his back appearing cold and heartless. Qingyi watched his retreating figure and murmured softly, "This servant truly feels the princess's admiration was not worth it." Suddenly, Chui Qingyu halted, his body stiffening slightly. Then, he slowly turned, frowned at Qingyi, and demanded, "What did you say? Repeat it." Qingyi was momentarily startled, only then remembering that the man before her was, after all, the imperial tutor, a figure of immense prestige. Her voice became barely audible as she stammered, "Qingyi." Qingyi didn't say anything. Qingyu's heart sank. Though his expression remained calm, a complex emotion flashed in his eyes. He replied coldly, "I heard you, the princess admires me? That is quite a novelty." He gave a contemptuous snort, thinking to himself that Qingyu was likely just like the other women in the capital, either captivated by his appearance or enticed by his family background. Wasn't that precisely why His Majesty had betrothed the ninth princess to him? He recalled the imperial edict announcing their arranged marriage. The yellow silk scroll of that decree surfaced in his mind, each word of praise for him and Qingyu glaring like a wound. What virtuous and capable, what promising youth, all mere excuses to elevate someone to the position of prince consort. He didn't believe the emperor would ever speak so highly of him and Qingyu behind their backs. Snapping back to reality, Qingyu turned his gaze to Qingyi, who still stood there pale-faced, her eyes filled with terror. He said coldly, "I won't hold you accountable for your insulting words, but I expect you to stop appearing before me in tears. It is rather unseemly for me." Qingyi's heart sank, her face turning ashen. She hastily curtsied, her voice trembling as she said, "Thank you, Your Excellency, for your magnanimity." With that, she bowed and turned to leave. Her figure gradually blended into the surrounding snowy landscape, leaving only a trail of faint footprints behind. Qingyu turned, observing the imperial tutor's residence unchanged. Servants swept the snow-covered corridors with their usual orderly pace, everything appeared as it always had. Yet a void seemed to gnaw at his heart, an indescribable sense of loss. Before the crimson cloud courtyard, white banners hung in rows. They fluttered in the biting wind, their rustling sound only deepening the chill. Occasionally, servants passed by, their footsteps light as they cleared away the princess's belongings from the courtyard. According to Nanchu law, upon a princess's death without heirs, her entire dowry reverted to the imperial court. Yet Qingyu's dowry differed from other princesses, it contained no 1,000 horses or numerous carriages. Only bolts of cloth, coins, jewelry, and cosmetics remained. The servants opened the wooden boxes scattered on the ground, presenting each item for Qingyu's inspection. One servant cautiously reported, "All her belongings are here, Your Excellency." Without explicit orders, who among the servants would dare touch the princess's possessions? Qingyu's expression remained icy as he flipped through the invitation in his hand. "We'll sort these today." Hearing this, another servant timidly inquired, "Your Excellency, the princess also painted some works during her lifetime. Should we burn them? Surely we needn't return even the paintings to the imperial family." Qingyu fell silent for a moment, his fingers tapping lightly on the tabletop. Then, he lifted his chin slightly, signaling the servant to return the scrolls to their place. The servant bowed and set the items down. The room felt vast and empty, the winter chill particularly biting, like countless small knives slicing at the skin. The cold wind made the curtains inside the room flutter. The way the curtains moved resembled someone walking behind the misty fabric. Qingyu sat down at the desk, his movements deliberate and slow. He loosened the cord binding the painting. The red string fell onto the desk with a soft thud. The scroll unfolded, revealing a landscape painting. Seeing it wasn't the painting he expected, Qingyu frowned, instinctively reaching to roll it back up. But something flashed through his mind, and his hand paused midair. He looked at the inscription beside the painting. What could it be that brings joy to the gentleman? "I find the Green Mountains so charming. I imagine the Green Mountains see me in the same way." Qingyu stared at the unfinished lines, his entire being frozen in place. If it were anyone else, they would never have deciphered such an obscure expression. But who was he? He was the imperial tutor of Nanchu, how could he fail to understand the unmistakable love hidden within these verses? In that instant, a buzzing sensation echoed through his mind. He slowly lowered his eyes, struggling to conceal the turmoil within. After sitting for only a moment, he rose to retrieve other scrolls from the room. He unfolded each scroll one by one, examining them closely. This time, every painting by Xing Qingyu depicted none other than Cui Qingyu himself. The surroundings instantly grew still and oppressive, the very air seeming to constrict. During her lifetime, Xing Qingyu had not spent much time in the Gui palaces by Hall. She had never noticed that the courtyard Cui Qingyu had given her was the least spacious in the entire imperial tutor's residence. Now, Cui Qingyu felt an inexplicable, strange sense of relief. It's good she never knew, he thought silently, otherwise, she would have been saddened. Recalling Xing Qingyu's eyes, always tinged with sorrow, his heart felt as though it had been suddenly clenched by an invisible hand. Late at night, imperial tutor's residence. Cui Qingyu had retired to his chambers early, weary from the day's events. Charcoal embers glowed within the room, filling it with warmth. Squeak, the door creaked open as a servant hurried in, urgently reporting, "Sir. The prefectural office has begun investigating the princess's poisoning death." Cui Qingyu's expression remained unreadable. In his view, uncovering who poisoned the princess was a positive development. It would resolve his doubts and prove his innocence. After all, rumors had recently begun circulating in the capital, claiming that Cui Qingyu, harboring dislike for the princess, had poisoned Xing Qingyu to death. The next moment, the servant cried out in panic, "Oh my, Your Excellency! They've taken Miss Xia away." Cui Qingyu clenched his fists tightly, his eyes darkening as he demanded, "On what charges did they arrest her? Did they say when she'd be released? What does the Xia family say?" 3 questions fired off in quick succession, his anxiety plain for all to see. The servant wiped sweat from his brow and reported immediately, "The prefectural office arrested her." The reasoning is that very few people had grievances with the princess in the past. Upon reflection, only Miss Xia fits that description. Who doesn't know that Miss Xia was once driven to attempt suicide by the princess? By all logic, if Xia Mingyu harbored resentment, poisoning the princess wouldn't be impossible. But in everyone's eyes, Xia Mingyu, galloping across the battlefield, was like a thorny rose in the desert, vivid and captivating. How could she possibly commit such a treacherous act? As for releasing the prisoners, the prefectural office stated they must be thoroughly investigated first, the servant continued. The Xia family is quite anxious, the servant added. Rumor has it they urgently sent female relatives to the palace to seek the Empress Dowager's assistance. Everything had slipped beyond Cui Qingyu's control. Yet his expression remained serene. He lowered his gaze in thought for a moment before instructing the servant, "You may withdraw for now." Then, raising his voice, he called out, "Yi." A man clad in black, form-fitting garments emerged swiftly from the shadows like a specter. He bowed and knelt, replying, "Your Excellency, I am at your service." Cui Qingyu tapped his index finger lightly on the tabletop, his expression inscrutable. "Go and search," he ordered. "Find evidence that can prove Mingyu's innocence. Also, investigate who spread the rumor that this official poisoned the princess." People repeating falsehoods is one thing, Cui Qingyu frowned, adding, "But if the ignorant hear it, they might think I, Cui Qingyu, harbor treasonous intentions." Though he had entertained such thoughts, he had never acted upon them. As night deepened, snow continued to drift down over the capital, with no sign of spring's arrival. Listening to the intelligence gathered by his spies, Cui Qingyu felt a chill. He thought to himself, no wonder the prefectural office dared to move against Xia Mingyu. So someone was pulling the strings behind the scenes. It was the emperor who had spread the rumors and had Xia Mingyu arrested. It was a two-pronged scheme, suppressing the Xia family while simultaneously tarnishing the reputation of the imperial tutor, the most powerful man in the court, with rumors and disdain from scholars across the land. The spy watched Cui Qingyu, deep in thought, hesitating whether to reveal the other information he had uncovered. In the end, he spoke. "Your Excellency, I have discovered something else." In truth, Miss Xia's hanging was not instigated by the princess. It turned out that on the day of the return visit, a young palace attendant had been shirking duty, hiding behind a stone lion statue to nap. He had recorded every word of Xia Mingyu's interrogation of the princess. Court ears were ever sharp, and tongues ever loose, uncovering such matters was no great feat for them. Cui Qingyu's expression remained impassive as he stubbornly declared, "Then this matter is still connected to the princess." The secret agent continued expressionlessly, his tone rigid, "The poison administered to the princess was her own doing. Investigations reveal that before her marriage to Your Excellency, the princess visited the library to examine records. Afterwards, she personally went to the alley by the coal palace, bribing a young eunuch with money to buy that luo hui poison. Hearing this, Choi Sung-woo froze instantly. His heart felt as if struck by a massive boulder, followed by a relentless downpour of heavy stones, threatening to crush it into shards. Though he sat in a room warmed by burning charcoal, he felt an increasing chill. Choi Ching-yu sat frozen like that until dusk gradually fell, enveloping him entirely in darkness. He went to the tree in the courtyard and dug up the poison vial Shin Ching-yu had used. Bending down, he clasped the earth-stained porcelain bottle in his hand, feeling its bone-chilling coldness. Just then, a melodious voice suddenly pierced his ears. "Welcome to the Nanchu Museum. My mentor will now continue the tour of artifacts unearthed from the tomb." The north wind howled fiercely, yet the icicles hanging from the eaves of the imperial tutor's residence remained utterly still. Choi Ching-yu walked along a path of pristine whiteness, his heart still knotted like a tight knot tied with a thin thread, impossible to untangle. Amidst the bustling marketplace, vendors' cries rose and fell in waves. "Charcoal for sale! Chrysanthemum charcoal!" Some were drawn by the call, intending to buy some charcoal, but upon seeing the price, they froze. They pressed the vendor. "This chrysanthemum charcoal not only sparks easily but also smokes heavily. Even if you paid me, I wouldn't want it. Where'd you get the nerve to charge so much?" The vendor lowered his voice. "You know the ninth princess, right? When she was at the imperial tutor's residence, she used this very same inferior charcoal." Hearing this, Choi Ching-yu's footsteps halted abruptly. He walked over to the charcoal stall. He picked up a piece of black charcoal, examining it closely until the wind chilled his hand. Only then did he place it back. Arriving at the steward's office of the imperial tutor's residence, Choi Ching-yu coldly surveyed the servants gathered there. His voice was icy as he demanded, "Why have you been skimping on charcoal for the ninth princess?" Xing Ching-yu was already frail. Charcoal was indispensable during the winter. The servants, flustered and timid, stammered, "It was Miss Xie's orders." "Xie Mingyu? How is she involved?" Choi Ching-yu frowned, his expression cold as he swept a glance over them. "Continue." The servants dared not conceal anything and laid out the entire matter. Miss Xie said the lord is incorruptible, and since the princess married him, she should set an example. That's why she replaced the gold thread charcoal in the princess's chambers with chrysanthemum charcoal. But rest assured, Lord, Miss Xie also said the ninth princess came from the coal palace and surely couldn't tell inferior charcoal from good charcoal. And look, since the ninth princess married in, she's never uttered a single complaint about the imperial tutor's residence. Choi Ching-yu's expression turned icy cold as he demanded, "So you do whatever Xie Mingyu says, is that it?" The servants looked at each other nervously, unsure how to respond. Seeing this, Choi Ching-yu slowly closed his eyes and took a deep breath, trying to calm the rage within him. Then, he snapped his eyes open and strode out of the steward's office. Standing at the doorway, he coldly ordered the servants beside him, "Go. Expel Steward Su, who manages the charcoal fires in the mansion, from the estate." The servants were startled by this sudden command, their faces showing utter bewilderment. Yet they dared not disobey Choi Ching-yu's order. After a moment's hesitation, they immediately carried out his instructions. Though the matter was temporarily resolved, a heavy stone seemed to weigh down Choi Sung-woo's heart. He recalled his promise to Song Chong-woo that she would be his wife alone. Yet now, she was constantly bullied by others, suffering injustices without uttering a word. Filled with doubt, he couldn't help but wonder inwardly, what does she see me as? Does she not trust me? As dusk deepened, the cold night swept in unchecked. Choi Ching-yu retired to his chambers early, intending to rest. Lying in bed, he tossed and turned, his mind swirling with thoughts, his entire being drowsy and hazy. Meanwhile, the Choi residence was ablaze with festive red, brimming with celebratory atmosphere. Choi Ching-yu's close friend, drunk and staggering, approached him. Slurring his words, he laughed, "Brother Choi, now that the new emperor has ascended the throne and you've stepped down from your position as imperial tutor, you're ready to leave all that turmoil behind. This is a rare opportunity, why not get properly drunk with me?" Choi Ching-yu paused, a strange feeling rising within him. He frowned and asked, What drunken nonsense are you spouting?" Just then, his mother approached with light steps, a gentle smile on her face as she looked at him tenderly. On such a joyous day, don't keep the bride waiting. The moment he saw his mother, Cui Qingyu felt a bit dazed, merely nodding blankly. As if guided by an invisible force, his feet carried him toward the bridal chamber. Arriving at the door, he took a deep breath, slowly pushed it open, and stepped inside. Within, a bride sat beneath a crimson canopy. A semi-translucent red veil covered her face, obscuring her features from Choi Sung-woo's view. The dragon and phoenix candles on the table flickered uncertainly, their faint glow casting a hazy, dreamlike beauty throughout the room. Cui Qingyu felt little emotion, yet his feet seemed nailed to the spot, halting him involuntarily. At that moment, the woman's gentle voice called out, "Cui Ling, what's wrong? Are you tired?" Cui Qingyu shook his head, a flicker of warmth passing through his eyes. He reached out and gently lifted the veil. The moment he saw the face revealed, his expression froze. It wasn't Xie Mingyu, but Xin Qingyu. "How could it be you?" Cui Qingyu murmured in stunned disbelief. Opening his eyes again, Cui Qingyu jolted upright in alarm. He gasped for breath, his forehead glistening with cold sweat. Outside, snow continued to fall, flakes drifting through the window and settling on the ground. He rubbed his temples, a wave of helplessness washing over him. Confusion filled his mind. Why would I dream of Xin Qingyu? What could this possibly mean? Snow swirled relentlessly as another day passed. Representatives from the Xie family arrived. Upon seeing Cui Qingyu, they bowed respectfully and said, "Your Excellency, the imperial tutor, our master requests your presence." Cui Qingyu understood immediately, this must concern Xie Mingyu, still imprisoned. He accepted without hesitation, nodding. "Very well, I'll go now." He stepped out to meet the Xie family representatives. After their meeting, Cui Qingyu remained silent for a moment before finally admitting, "My feelings for Mingyu are purely admiration. There is no romantic love involved." He expected the Xie family to be furious, to demand accountability. But the reality surprised him. The Xie family members approached him with smiles, sincerely saying, "Thank you, Imperial Tutor, for your honest explanation." It turned out that over the years, the Xie family had clearly seen the Emperor's apprehension toward them. Therefore, they had no desire for Xie Mingyu to be entangled with Cui Qingyu in any way. Moreover, having already produced an empress, the Xie family had no need to seek a prestigious marriage for their daughter. Hearing this, a flicker of stiffness crossed Cui Qingyu's eyes. Deeply embarrassed, he could only manage a muttered "hm" to mask his discomfort. Seeing his reaction, the Xie family members felt a sense of relief. One of them hesitated before tentatively pleading, might the imperial tutor find time to visit the imperial prison? To explain things clearly to Mingyu, perhaps giving her a chance to give up hope. Cui Qingyu's gaze grew icy, his eyes resolute as he replied, "I will go and speak plainly with her." With that, he turned and strode purposefully toward the prefectural government office. Upon seeing the imperial tutor arrive, the prefectural governor hurried forward and respectfully said, "Your Excellency, this way." He then immediately ordered the prisoner to be brought from the heavenly prison. The dimly lit heavenly prison resembled a dungeon more than anything else. A long, descending corridor stretched ahead, flanked by rows of black-armored soldiers standing at attention, their expressions stern and their stances rigid. Candles flickered faintly on the stone walls, casting a dim glow that stood out starkly in the darkness. The moment he entered, a damp, musty stench hit his nose, making him involuntarily wrinkle his brow. Cui Qingyu wrinkled his nose and pressed onward. Pausing before a cell door, he peered inside and found the interior surprisingly tidy, devoid of any vermin. Evidently, the prison guards dared not show her disrespect. Xie Mingyu sat meditating on her bed. Hearing footsteps behind her, she assumed another interrogator had come to coerce a confession. Her voice was cold. "I've said it before, I didn't poison Xin Qingyu. Don't even think about making me confess." Cui Qingyu stood before the cell door, silent for a long moment, his eyes revealing a complex mix of emotions. Finally, he spoke slowly, "I know it wasn't you." The truth was Xin Qingyu had taken poison to end his own life, but that couldn't be said. Xie Mingyu sat idly on her bed, suddenly hearing movement outside. She sprang up from the bed and stared intently. It really was Cui Qingyu. In an instant, her eyes shone as brightly as dazzling stars. She cried out excitedly, "Qingyu, you've finally come to see me. Have you come to rescue me?" Qingyu shook his head slowly, a subtle expression on his face. Seeing this, Xie Mingyu's expression stiffened slightly. An impulse surged within her, urging her to reach out and touch Qingyu's simple, elegant robe as she had done before. Her hand extended, and her feet moved forward without conscious thought. But just then, the door slammed shut with a loud bang, separating the two of them. Her hand hung suspended in midair, ultimately failing to touch him. Late winter sunlight streamed through the window, gently bathing both Xie Mingyu and Qingyu. Not a trace of sorrow flickered in Qingyu's eyes, yet his cold demeanor sent an inexplicable chill through her. He spoke coldly, "The one who poisoned it wasn't any one of us, but all of us." Xie Mingyu looked utterly bewildered, completely unable to comprehend his words. His cold detachment felt like a sharp blade, stabbing painfully into her heart. Anger surged within her. How dare he say that? "I didn't poison anyone. That woman, Qingyu, simply didn't have the fortune to live." Qingyu, sharp-minded as ever, seemed to see right through Xie Mingyu's thoughts. He said indifferently, "I intended to marry you only to leverage your Xie family's influence and uncover the truth behind my parents' deaths." Xie Mingyu froze, her gaze flickering for a long moment. After a long pause, she finally continued, "It's fine. I don't care. I only care about you." In that moment, she seemed to care about nothing else, her heart and eyes filled solely with Qingyu. Qingyu, however, thought to himself, "Care? If she truly cared, how could she disregard me and repeatedly make things difficult for Qingyu?" Thus, he said coldly, "General Xia, I never intended to grow old with you." Suddenly, Qingyu recalled the events of that New Year's Eve. Back then, his mind had been elsewhere, and he had forgotten to give this woman before him an answer. Now, he felt it was finally time to speak his mind. Upon hearing this, Xie Mingyu's face instantly drained of color. She urgently protested, "But that night before, we already consummated our relationship." They had never mentioned this to others, preserving each other's reputation. Yet both knew the truth. That night, Xie Mingyu had outmaneuvered him, forcing him to drink excessive amounts of strong liquor. When he awoke, they were already sharing the same room. This time, however, Qingyu declared with unwavering certainty, "One cannot consummate a marriage while intoxicated." With that, he snapped back to his senses and turned to leave. Xie Mingyu's expression went blank for a moment. She clenched the prison door bars tightly and shouted, "The man that night had my teeth marks on his shoulder. I know whether they're real or not." Qingyu's footsteps faltered slightly, but he did not turn back. Naturally, there were no bite marks on his shoulder. Even if there were, he would never marry Xie Mingyu, for what he loathed most in life was being manipulated. After Qingyu departed, the officials within the prefecture of Kyoto dropped their tasks and began whispering among themselves. One official asked curiously, "What's with Magistrate Chui looking so cold?" Another official scoffed, "Cold? He's always been that icy, aloof type." Yet another official murmured mysteriously, "Well, you clearly haven't seen Magistrate Chui around the princess. He's so gentle then." The official beside him quickly cut him off, "Whoa, better not say that now he's gone." After leaving the prefecture office, Qingyu proceeded to the Ministry of Rites to discuss matters concerning the princess's tomb and the grand sacrificial ceremony. Upon entering the Ministry of Rites, he glanced around and noticed that nearly all the officials wore light green robes, each looking utterly exhausted. After all, the year's end was approaching, and there were simply too many preparations to be made. The officials, upon seeing him, hurriedly handed over the ledgers documenting various affairs. Qingyu took the ledgers and realized these were no trivial administrative matters. He nodded and took a seat at a nearby desk. The Vice Minister of Rites seemed to have encountered a difficult issue. After hesitating for a moment, he mustered his courage and approached Qingyu. He cautiously asked, "Should the murals in the princess's tomb depict her life story?" This was indeed a conundrum. For commonly, the life stories depicted on murals were filled with hymns of praise, descriptions of celestial maidens descending to the mortal realm, or tales of peerless beauties. Yet for Qingyu, her life held scarcely any deeds worthy of being carved on a stele that would allow her to save face. Should they write that she was a disaster star descended upon the world? That would be utterly inappropriate. Cui Qingyu paused slightly, countering, why not engrave it? His brow furrowed slightly, a hint of confusion in his eyes. The Vice Minister of Rights immediately grasped his meaning. A flash of realization crossed his face as he swiftly turned to issue instructions to the others. Just then, that otherworldly voice suddenly resounded in Cui Qingyu's ear, let us continue our tour. These are murals unearthed from Princess Chang'el's tomb. The crisp voice sounded abruptly beside him. The figures depicted remain vividly lifelike, their colors strikingly bright. Anyone who sees them would surely praise the artistic prowess of the Southern Chu people, still on point. What did on point mean? Cui Qingyu frowned, his mind filled with confusion. When the voice first appeared, he had thought he was suffering from hysteria, consumed by constant worry. Yet after the imperial physician examined him, he merely stated, Your Excellency is merely fatigued, there is nothing to be concerned about. Judging by the voice's account, it seemed someone had looted the princess's tomb, removing each burial artifact to display for others to admire. Cui Qingyu coldly declared, absurd. His face darkened, his tone brimming with fury. The official beside him looked up from the case files, his eyes filled with confusion. What's absurd? Who are you speaking to, Lord Cui? Seeing Cui Qingyu sitting coldly at his desk, the official assumed he had misheard. The next moment, however, Lord Cui beckoned him over and asked, Is the quicksand intended for the burial chamber prepared? Official Wang Liang snapped back to attention, clasping his hands respectfully. It's all set. Rest assured, Your Excellency. Would you doubt my competence? I'll make sure those who seek to plunder the tomb for quick riches never return. He pounded his chest, his expression brimming with confidence. Seeing his resolute look, Cui Qingyu pondered briefly before adding, Make the tomb chamber sturdy. Ensure no tomb raiders can breach it. Cui Qingyu remained at the government office until dusk, then, escorted by attendants, boarded his carriage and departed the palace gates. Returning to the imperial tutor's residence, Cui Qingyu stood before the crimson-clad courtyard, the biting wind whipping at his robes. He stood there for a long time, his gaze unfocused, before finally turning to return to his chambers. He didn't know what had come over him, but he found himself thinking of Xing Qingyu constantly. In his mind, one moment she lay exhausted on her sickbed, her face as pale as paper, her breath faint. The next, she was radiant in her wedding finery on their wedding night, her phoenix crown and bridal robes dazzling. Cui Qingyu closed his eyes and murmured, Xing Qingyu, why did you take your own life? His voice carried a hint of bitterness. In an instant, scenes from the past flashed through his mind, and he already knew the answer. The 26th year of the Yuanhe era, Lantern Festival. Cui Qingyu first journeyed to the outskirts of the capital, finding the small mound where Shenilio was buried. Gazing at the modest grave, he murmured, This is indeed a place of serene beauty. Xing Qingyu knew how to choose. As he spoke, an inexplicable heaviness settled in his heart. Then he added, She sure knew how to leave trouble behind. She departed so decisively, yet left him with 4 graves to tend. From now on, every year would be occupied. Cui Qingyu murmured faintly, I really shouldn't have come. It only stirs trouble. Though he said this, he had come anyway. He stood at the edge of the rugged cliff, just as Xing Qingyu had done, gazing toward the imperial city gates. The tall tree still stood there, only the fluttering red ribbon was gone. He stood quietly for a while. The wind whistled around him, blowing away much of the heaviness in his heart. Cui Qingyu descended the mountain and walked along the streets of the capital. At a roadside tea stall, many people were engaged in lively conversation. One said, The imperial tutor's first wife has passed away. Why hasn't he married General Xia? Another chimed in, Poor General Xia. He and the imperial tutor were meant for each other. Cui Qingyu approached, his expression cold and terrifying. The princess is gone, yet the imperial tutor won't marry. The princess is still here, yet the imperial tutor still won't marry. The crowd dropped their melon seeds and turned to look at him. His striking features drew their attention, and someone asked, Which noble house are you from, young master? Are you already betrothed? Cui Qingyu pressed his thin lips together, his mood sour. I am Cui Qingyu, he replied. With that, he gathered his sleeves and turned to leave. At the tea stall, the crowd froze upon hearing the name Cui Qingyu. Someone stroked their chin, murmuring, "That name sounds familiar." After a long moment, when they suddenly recalled the title of imperial tutor, someone frowned and asked, "Is there another Cui Qingyu in the capital?" Immediately, someone slapped their knee in excitement, exclaiming, "Good heavens! That was the imperial tutor himself just now." Another person said with regret, "My wife always praised the imperial tutor as a rare gem, peerless in the world. I never believed her before, but seeing him today, I realize how foolish I was." Regardless of what others said, Choi Sung-woo had many affairs to attend to. He was always rushing about, leaving him no time to concern himself with the rumors circulating in the capital. After the Lantern Festival came the great sacrificial ceremony. Before dawn, Cui Qingyu set out under the cover of night toward the imperial palace's heavenly altar to begin preparations for the ceremony. Light snow drifted through the palace grounds, pure white flakes falling softly. Yet this light snow did not deter the officials, who arrived steadily one after another. Cui Qingyu stood quietly to one side, his expression impassive. The ritual was the most crucial event of the year. Though it consumed considerable wealth, it was the will of the people for the entire nation. Just then, Cui Qingyu unexpectedly saw Xie Mingyu. She no longer wore her former red, martial attire. Instead, she was clad in black, her expression cold and stern, her eyes radiating an indescribable chill. Cui Qingyu paused slightly, then averted his gaze, his heart filled with complex emotions. An official nearby, noticing Cui Qingyu's expression, sighed and remarked, "The Empress pleaded with His Majesty to release Miss Xie and restore all military authority to the Xie family." Cui Qingyu replied calmly, "Fortune and misfortune are intertwined, this may not necessarily be a bad thing." Xie Mingyu spotted Cui Qingyu and strode over, her voice icy. When the 9th princess was alive, the emperor never treated her with kindness. Now that she's dead, suddenly everyone is concerned about her. Her words were laced with biting sarcasm. Cui Qingyu remained expressionless, his tone utterly calm as he replied, "Perhaps it is regret." Xie Mingyu was taken aback. She looked up abruptly and pressed, "Does the imperial tutor also harbor regrets? I always believed the imperial tutor would set aside personal feelings for the greater good." She was unusually sharp today, her words unusually pointed. Even in her most forthright moments before, Xie Mingyu had never spoken like this. Cui Qingyu's brows knitted slightly, a faint unease stirring within him. Xie Mingyu turned and returned to her designated position, gazing silently at the highest altar. For some inexplicable reason, Cui Qingyu felt a wave of foreboding wash over him. The wind whistled sharply, rustling his sleeves and revealing a glimpse of a jade pendant as pure and white as the snow-capped Tian Shan Mountains. That was precisely the Cui family's heirloom jade, which Emperor Shing had searched for endlessly yet never found. For everyone believed such a precious jade should be hidden away in some secret chamber within a study. The ritual commenced, the sounds of gong ho and drums echoing across the entire altar. The music was melodious and grand, as if carrying a mysterious power. The white-robed priest stood at the altar's center, his right hand holding a golden bell high, its jingles tinkling softly in the breeze. His left hand held a fan level, gently swaying with his movements. The priest wore a half-mask, its expression elusive, part sorrow, part joy, impossible to decipher. Though Cui Qingyu had witnessed such scenes before, Xing Yibai had never seen anything like it. Xing Yibai drifted off, his gaze wandering around the room. In that moment, he failed to notice someone behind the dark red carpet quietly slipping a hand into their sleeve, then suddenly lunging toward the emperor with a dagger. The eunuchs cried out, "Protect His Majesty!" "An assassin!" Chaos erupted instantly. Before the imperial guards could unsheath their swords, a group of their own men turned traitor. They swiftly grabbed the guards by the neck, twisted their bodies, and plunged blades into them. Blood spattered everywhere, the pungent scent of blood filling the air. Everyone knew immediately, a rebellion had begun. Officials fled in terror, some were knocked to the ground, and the situation spiraled further out of control. Cui Qingyu found himself in the midst of it, his gaze darting frantically around. Suddenly, an arrow shot from an unknown direction, its cold whistling piercing the air as it struck Cui Qingyu squarely in the shoulder blade. A searing pain shot through him as he stumbled backward, kneeling to the ground. His purple official robe stained crimson. He clutched the wound with his hand, struggling to rise. A single drop of blood trickled from his icy fingers onto the white jade. In that instant, all fell silent. Golden clouds dispersed across the sky, sun and moon shining together. A blinding white light pierced everyone's eyes, forcing them to shut them. In the next instant, the light faded. Cui Qingyu, who should have been present, vanished from his spot. The legendary jade had come to the Cui family long ago. An immortal, who had a past connection with their ancestor, had gifted it upon their parting. Of course, this was merely legend. Cui Qingyu had long dismissed it as mere entertainment. But when he saw the figure standing before him, he felt as if, after his hearing impairment, he had now lost his sight. He never imagined he would meet an old acquaintance under such circumstances, nor did he ever expect to see Qingyu again. Clang! The jade pendant at his waist fell to the ground, shattering into 2 pieces. Qingyu hurriedly pulled him up, gathering the shards with a face full of guilt and emotion. Why were you standing there like that? Oh no, you didn't lose your soul to the lake bottom, did you? You saved me in the first place. If the old nurse finds out, she'll scold me to death. Cui Qingyu lowered his head, gazing at her youthful face. The cold wind by the lake made their soaked clothes feel even colder, and Qingyu's nose turned a shade redder. She waved her 5 fingers in front of his eyes. Are you okay? Cui Qingyu asked blankly, you're still alive? Qingyu's expression changed slightly, and she blurted out, what else could I be? She glanced at the deep, icy lake, shivered, and whispered softly, still, thank you for jumping into the lake to save me. Cui Qingyu trembled as if struck by lightning, then realized he had returned to the 18th year of the Yuanhe era, the moment of their first encounter. At this time, Qingyu was only 12, young and inexperienced. He was still an obscure Cui family scion preparing for the imperial examinations. Snowflakes drifted from the sky, and a gentle breeze scattered petals, settling on Qingyu's long, raven-black lashes. She returned the jade to him, I'll repay you someday. In his past life, he had coldly replied, it won't be necessary. This time, watching her drenched by the rain, Cui Qingyu felt as though he were witnessing her fate. Driven by the world, she would sacrifice herself for everyone else, and he would be one of those responsible for her suffering. A dagger of truth pierced his heart. After that, he never found her again. Snapping back to reality, Cui Qingyu stepped forward and embraced her. Qingyu's back stiffened instantly. After a long moment, she finally spoke. You? She didn't voice the thought, how dare you touch me? After all, he was her savior, and propriety demanded restraint. Someone nearby couldn't stand the tension and broke the silence. How long do you plan to hug? Don't you dare ignore me. Who are you? Choi Sung-woo didn't release her, turning with a frown. How dare you push someone into the water? Qingyu lowered her head, tugging lightly at his sleeve. That's Xia Shi, the young master of the Xia family. Xia Shi smiled. Correct. I am Xia Shi, unaltered in name or deed. I pushed her. What are you going to do about it? Qingyu's eyes darkened. Then, Cui Qingyu calmly walked up to Xia Shi and pushed him into the water. With a splash, Xia Shi fell in like a glutinous rice ball. Everyone was stunned. The eunuchs panicked, shouting, Quick, someone help. Young Master Xia has fallen in. Qingyu's heart tightened as he glanced at Cui Qingyu, who remained utterly composed. Xia Shi was pulled out by the eunuchs, kneeling on the ground, coughing and spluttering water. His trembling finger pointed at the two. You too. I won't let this go. What a lively scene, a gentle voice drifted over. Qingyu followed the sound and saw a man in blue robes approaching. The wind rustled his clothes, causing the python-patterned jade pendant at his waist to jingle softly. Cui Qingyu bowed respectfully, Your Highness, the Crown Prince. Xia Shi's face lit up with joy. He cried out excitedly, Cousin, the Crown Prince. Come help me. He knelt, turning his head, his expression utterly wretched. The Crown Prince spoke calmly, Cousin, please don't kneel to speak with me. Rise and speak. Xia Shi felt humiliated, but the Crown Prince paid no heed. The Crown Prince turned his gaze to the three. Cui Qingyu's clothes were still dripping wet. Xia Shi looked utterly disheveled. Qing Qingyu's hair was a mess, his eyes red and filled with fear. Cui Qingyu shifted his stance, positioning himself in front of the ninth princess. The crown prince paused slightly, his gaze softening as he addressed the palace attendant, explaining what happened. The attendant bowed his head, oblivious to Xia Shi's glare, and respectfully replied, "Young Master Xia wished for the ninth princess to perform the ice dance." The princess stated she could not. Young Master Xia refused to believe it, insisting her mother could dance and forcing her onto the frozen lake. Young Master Cui happened to pass by, couldn't stand by, jumped into the lake to save the princess, and pushed young Master Xia into the water. The crown prince waved his hand gently, dismissing the palace attendant. He then ordered, "Someone, take Xia Shi back. Tell his maternal grandfather to punish him by confining him to the estate for a year. Say it is this palace's command." Qing Qingyu looked utterly stunned. She thought to herself, Xia Shi was clearly in the wrong, but the crown prince is her cousin, shouldn't he show some leniency? Cui Qingyu saw through her thoughts and silently sighed at how little regard she had for her own life. Night fell at the Cui residence. The servants hurried to greet Cui Qingyu as he stepped down from his carriage, ushering him into the mansion. Li Kei stepped forward, "Young master, the lady and master are seeking you." Cui Qingyu paused briefly before heading toward the main hall. The room was brightly lit, the Cui couple already seated and waiting. Cui's mother saw his drenched clothes and her eyes filled with concern. "What happened to you?" Cui Qingyu's expression was distant, his thoughts drifting far away. In the 20th year of the Yuanhe era, his parents left the capital to visit friends. On their return journey, they met with a tragic accident. The provincial authorities claimed bandits had ambushed them. But the Cui family was a distinguished lineage, with vast influence. What bandits would dare provoke the direct descendants of the Cui clan? Snapping back to reality, he lifted his robe and knelt heavily. Cui's father gave a cold snort, his expression softening slightly. He lifted his teacup, took a sip, and asked, "You went to the palace to see your aunt. What did she tell you?" Cui Qingyu answered truthfully, "Her Imperial Highness the Consort Shu said the emperor grows increasingly weary of the aristocratic families." Cui's father fell silent for a moment, then took another sip of tea. Rivalry between ruler and subjects has been thus since ancient times. By the time you enter officialdom, I should be retiring. Cui Qingyu clenched his fists and changed the subject. "Father, there is something I must ask of you." His father replied in a low voice, "It has to do with your falling into the water today, doesn't it?" Cui Qingyu's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't expected his father to know about that. Cui's mother tried to interject, but his father shot her a glance. "You may leave. Qingyu and I need to speak." Cui's mother shot Cui Qingyu a meaningful glance, urging him to speak plainly. Once she had left the main hall, Cui's father coldly demanded, "You actually laid hands on the young master of the Xia family today, all for the sake of an unloved princess?" Cui Qingyu paused briefly, then realized, so the palace attendant who spoke on my behalf was one of father's people. Father Cui sighed. "You're not entirely foolish, just too young and impulsive." He continued, "The harem is controlled by the empress. How could an ordinary palace attendant dare offend the Xia family by speaking for you? The ninth princess holds little influence and has no backing. It's only natural she's bullied. Why did you have to get involved in this turmoil? Are you so clever you've lost your mind?" Facing his father's questioning and reproach, Cui Qingyu remained unflinching. "Your son wishes to marry the ninth princess." His father slammed down his teacup, scrutinizing him with astonishment. "It would be strange enough for you to marry a princess, but now you want to wed the one in the cold palace. Why?" Cui Qingyu lifted his head, his gaze unwavering. "Qingyu and the ninth princess, we understood each other instantly. In his previous life, he had already lost her once. This time, he could not lose her again. Had heaven allowed him to return to the past, not out of pity for his eventual loss of both parents and the premature death of his wife?" He pressed on, "Furthermore, my marriage to the ninth princess would greatly benefit the Cui family." The argument was somewhat flimsy, but Cui's father still wanted to hear what this young man had to say. His gaze fell upon a bundle of bamboo and wooden slats prepared on the table. True to his reputation as an erudite imperial tutor, Cui Qingyu spoke with honeyed words. Your Majesty fears the Cui family. If Qingyu were to marry into an ordinary noble house, it would surely provoke the emperor's jealousy. The ninth princess has no backing, only the empty title of princess, making her the perfect match for Qingyu. Xing Qingyu, packing his belongings, heard this without anger and said, keep it ready. It might come in handy. What is your name? The maid Ruoyun, with a delicate, beautiful face, smiled gently. This servant is Ruoyun. My former mistress was the noble consort Shu. Xing Qingyu continued packing as she inquired, consort Shu? I've never met her. What sort of person was she? Ruoyun, mentioning her former mistress, tactfully shared some recent anecdotes. Consort Shu loved creating strange and wonderful contraptions. This month she invented a chair that can roll. Xing Qingyu froze. Did consort Shu study under the MO school? Only the MO school excelled in such ingenious devices. Ruoyun shook her head. Her ladyship never had a master. She's naturally gifted. The Cui family's offspring are all exceptionally clever, she added. Xing Qingyu finished packing. Ruoyun tried to dissuade her. Master and servant shared in each other's fortune and misfortune. If the princess lost face, so would she. Xing Qingyu refused, disregarding etiquette as she pulled Ruoyun into the carriage. The carriage had barely started moving when someone outside tried to stop it. Xing Qingyu lifted the curtain, peered forward, and smiled, brother. Seeing her smile, Xing Xiai suppressed his anger and stepped forward. I heard about your marriage to Cui Qingyu. If you don't want it, I'll ask His Majesty to revoke it. Xing Qingyu's heart tightened, and she quickly glanced around. Ruoyun covered her ears. The coachman offered, Princess, I'm deaf. Xing Qingyu. Xing Xiai. Xing Qingyu sighed deeply, feigning maturity, brother, don't speak like that. How could the emperor's will be changed? Xing Xiai, irritated, we must try. Xing Qingyu smiled, stop fussing. Marrying into the Cui family is good for me. Brother, I've been trapped in the palace for so many years. I want to see what lies beyond its walls. Xing Xiai wavered slightly but remained firm, no. I'll still go plead with His Majesty. He thought to himself, Cui Qingyu developing feelings for his 12-year-old sister, if that's not pedophilia, what is it? He'd heard tales of noble families with twisted tastes, capturing young girls as child brides, tormenting them to death. The more he thought about it, the more terrifying it became. His voice turned cold, I'll go kill Cui Qingyu. Xing Qingyu hurriedly pulled him back, her voice soft, brother, if I marry into the Cui family, perhaps I can leverage their power in the future. The unspoken implication was clear, use the Cui family's influence to help Xing Xiai ascend to power. The siblings shared a telepathic connection. Xing Xi's heart raced as he looked at her, seeing no sign of deception in her eyes. Snowflakes drifted down in the morning sun, casting patches of shadow across the palace grounds of red walls and green tiles. Xing Qingyu smiled. By the emperor's decree, once I come of age, in the early spring of the 21st year of Yuanhe, I shall marry Cui Qingyu. Xing Xiai looked bewildered. So soon? Xing Qingyu sighed. Brother, it's not soon enough. They walked some distance, keeping the carriage far behind. Xing Xiai asked, do you truly wish for brother to ascend that throne? Xing Qingyu's gaze remained serene as the memory of that day by the water surfaced. She spoke slowly, I never intended it, but when I saw Xiaxi bullying her, Cui Qingyu stepping forward, Xiaxi humiliated. Seeing the crown prince arrive, Xiaxi regained his nerve to torment her again. Xing Qingyu continued, if someone like young Master Xia can seize opportunities, why can't I? She then turned to Xing Xiai, brother, you are also a prince. Why shouldn't you? Xing Xi's figure faltered, his tone growing slightly grave. You are right. Xing Qingyu's expression remained unchanged as she lifted her head to gaze at the dragon finials of the distant palace. Softly, she said, brother, we have a long future ahead. They walked together until they reached the palace gates, where the siblings parted ways. The snow fell heavily, slowing the carriage's progress. Before long, Xing Qingyu felt hungry. Her face was pale, and Ruoyun asked with concern, Princess, why are you so pale? Xing Qingyu covered her face. Probably from hunger. Outside the carriage, street vendors' cries filled the air. Xing Qingyu lifted the curtain, staring intently at the roadside stalls. Ruoyan cleverly suggested, "Princess, there's no rush to return to the palace. Why not stroll the streets and buy something to eat?" Xing Qingyu nodded, disembarked, and followed Ruoyan to a noodle stall. They sat down, waiting for the auspicious noodles. Xing Qingyu propped her head up with her hand, her expression weary. After waiting a long while, her gaze drifted unfocused. Ruoyan thought she must be drowsy. "Princess." A voice came from behind Ruoyan. Ruoyan turned to see Cui Qingyu. Cui Qingyu's eyes were fixed solely on Xing Qingyu. Then, a heavy thud echoed as something slammed onto the table. Ruoyan turned back to find the princess had fainted, her head hitting the table. Cui Qingyu scooped her up and rushed toward the clinic. Ruoyan was startled. As she tried to chase after them, the waiter grabbed her arm. "Miss, you haven't paid yet." Ruoyan pulled out silver coins and handed them to the waiter. "Here you go." She turned to look, but Cui Qingyu was already disappearing into the distance. Ruoyan chased after him, cursing, "How can you run so fast?" Inside the capital's medical clinic, Xing Qingyu curled up in pain, her face deathly pale. Cui Qingyu's voice trembled, "Doctor, please take her pulse quickly." After checking her pulse, the doctor shook his head and sighed. Cui Qingyu paled and asked, "How is she?" The doctor lowered his eyes and said, "Has she been exposed to cold recently? She should drink plenty of ginger soup and fish soup when she returns home." Cui Qingyu didn't believe it. "If it's just a chill, why is her face so pale?" The doctor had no choice but to explain plainly, "She's come to her period." Cui Qingyu froze, his expression relaxing. After the diagnosis, he picked up Xing Qingyu and carried her back to the princess's residence. All the way, Xing Qingyu clutched his robe tightly, saying nothing. Cui Qingyu spoke first, "I'm taking you back to the residence." Xing Qingyu gave a faint She didn't notice the contented smile that spread across Cui Qingyu's face. At the gates of the princess's residence, guards drew their swords to block their path. "Who goes there?" Cui Qingyu swept them with a glance, his expression dark and fierce. The guards quickly sheathed their swords. One asked, "So it's the young master of the Cui family. And this is?" Another guard nudged him with an elbow and bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Your Highness." The palace gates swung open wide as Cui Qingyu carried Xing Qingyu inside. They wound through a twisting corridor, past an exquisitely elegant pond, and entered the main courtyard. Xing Qingyu was laid upon a soft bed, a softness she had never known. Cui Qingyu stepped out briefly, returning with a steaming bowl of brown sugar milk tea. The tea was scalding hot, so he brought an extra spoon. Xing Qingyu motioned for him to sit first, then lifted the bowl to drink. Steam misted her eyes as she sipped the sweet, warm liquid. In this frosty season, both red dates and milk were rare luxuries. Even rarer was Cui Qingyu personally preparing them for her. A cloud of warmth enveloped Xing Qingyu's heart. Finishing her tea, she looked up at him. "There's something I've never understood." Cui Qingyu's breath caught slightly as he waited quietly for her to continue. "Do you think I'm easy to deceive?" Xing Qingyu asked. Cui Qingyu tightened his grip on his sleeve, his tone calm. "Why would you say that, princess?" The more composed he appeared, the more anxious he felt inside. Xing Qingyu stared at him, her expression serious. "You married me because you don't like me, right?" She refused to believe he truly cared for her. If he did, she felt the sky would fall. On this point, she shared her brother Xingxi's view that only someone with pedophilic tendencies could be attracted to her. Cui Qingyu smiled. "Princess, I understand that true affection can only be earned through sincerity. Relationships built on self-interest will inevitably crumble. While I cannot guarantee my intentions toward you are entirely free of calculation, my feelings are absolutely genuine." Xing Qingyu felt as if the sky had fallen. She was utterly perplexed and tormented. Cui Qingyu turned and left. Just then, Ruoyan, who had been wandering outside, finally rushed back. Exhausted, she didn't pause to speak, heading straight to the steward's office to ask for lodgings. The steward informed her she would stay in a small chamber within the princess's courtyard, right beside the princess. Though called a small chamber, it was anything but modest. Ruoyun felt deeply content. In the palace, maids were housed according to rank, with personal attendants sharing rooms. Now, she enjoyed a private chamber within the princess's residence. Night fell, and moonlight spilled into the princess's quarters, bathing the floor in silver radiance. Xing Qingyu lay in bed, tossing and turning, unable to sleep. Staring at the burning charcoal in the room, she murmured to herself, "Cui Qingyu may have saved me. But he's a man with peculiar tastes." After much contemplation, she resolved firmly, she must not give her heart to such a person. The next morning, dawn broke. A tutor matron entered the princess's residence, carrying numerous belongings as if preparing for a long stay. Ruoyun glanced at the busy matron before turning to enter the room. "Princess, that Su matron is the empress's woman. They call her a tutor, but she might just be a spy." Xing Qingyu shot her a peculiar look and replied coolly, "You really dare to say that?" She thought to herself, this girl is still consort Shu's pawn. Ruoyun diligently massaged her shoulders while tentatively asking, "Should we keep an eye on her among our servants?" Xing Qingyu almost said no, fearing that constant scrutiny might alert Su Nanny and cause awkwardness. "Let's observe for now." Xing Qingyu picked up a book nearby and became engrossed in reading. Ruoyun embroidered nearby, wanting to chat with the princess. Turning her head, she found the princess asleep on the armchair, her hand holding the book resting outside. Ruoyun smiled softly, rose, retrieved a light quilt from the cabinet, and covered Xing Qingyu with it. She then lit the charcoal brazier in the room before carefully leaving. Only after the 9th princess awoke did Ruoyun go to summon the matron. Nanny Su entered respectfully, curtsied, and began explaining the lessons: calligraphy, etiquette, incense appreciation, tea ceremony. This old servant can teach the princess all these. How much she learns depends on her aptitude. Ruoyun was even more nervous than Xing Qingyu and hurriedly asked, "What shall we learn today?" Nanny Su glanced at her and replied calmly, "Tea ceremony. Members of distinguished families must serve tea when receiving guests. The princess must not only learn this, but master it." Xing Qingyu felt apprehensive inside, afraid she might make a fool of herself if she did it poorly. Nanny Su sat down, demonstrating as she instructed. She placed a small tea pellet into the mortar and ground it finely with practiced skill, her movements pleasing to watch. Xing Qingyu wondered how she could grind the tea so finely. After the demonstration, the matron rose and asked, "Has the princess learned?" Xing Qingyu's expression tightened as she picked up the items on the table. It looked simple enough, but the moment she began, her mind went blank. Light the fire, wait for the water. What's next? The matron gently reminded her, "Princess, it's warming the cup. Warm the cup over the fire, a cold cup won't allow the tea powder to float." The matron's voice was gentle, even the wrinkles between her brows softened. Warming the cup, rinsing the tea, roasting the tea, grinding the tea powder, preparing the tea, and finally, tasting the tea. By the end of the day, Xing Qingyu's hands ached. As dusk fell, Nanny Su rose to take her leave. The 9th princess did well with the grinding step, she had just the right strength. Xing Qingyu forced a smile and returned the courtesy. "The snow is heavy outside, and the roads are treacherous. Please take care on your way home, Nanny." After the matron left, Xing Qingyu rubbed her wrists. Ruoyun leaned closer, concerned. "Princess, I'll go to the kitchen and boil you an egg." Xing Qingyu nodded. Half an incense stick later, it was Cui Qingyu who entered instead. Xing Qingyu was surprised. "Why are you here?" Cui Qingyu bowed, sat down beside her, and seeing tea on the table, poured himself a cup. "I heard a new matron arrived at the princess's residence, so I came to see." Xing Qingyu wanted to warn him that this was tea she'd brewed as practice, and she didn't know how it tasted. Cui Qingyu took a sip, his expression stiffening. Just then, Ruoyun returned with the egg. Seeing him, she exclaimed in surprise, "Young Master Cui is here?" Then she glanced at the tea and smiled. "This is the tea the princess brewed during her practice today." Though he hadn't intended to drink it, Cui Qingyu picked up the cup and took another sip. Hope flickered in Xing Qingyu's eyes. Cui Qingyu set down the cup and said gently, "Your Highness shows great talent in the tea ceremony." Xing Qingyu's heart leapt with joy. She nodded. "I think so too." Just as she was about to take a sip herself, Chui Qingyu picked up the teapot, poured a full cup, and drank it in one gulp. Ruoyun stepped forward, shaking the teapot. All of it? Qing Qingyu froze, a mix of amusement and exasperation washing over her. Slow down, don't choke. If you do, my reputation as a jinx will be cemented. Chui Qingyu immediately set down his cup, his expression turning serious. You are not a jinx. Ruoyun glanced at the princess, silently bowed, then retreated a few steps before turning away. Qing Qingyu remained silent for a long while. Chui Qingyu offered comfort, don't take those words to heart. Qing Qingyu smiled faintly, I've long grown accustomed to it. Chui Qingyu fell quiet. Ever since first meeting Qing Qingyu, she had always been bullied. Accustomed. The princess sat beside him, their body heat touching as if seeking warmth from each other. I often like to close one eye and gaze up at the sky above the coal palace, Qing Qingyu murmured softly, her expression gentle. Close one eye, and you have half as many enemies. He chuckled at her words, turning to look at her. Her face wore utter indifference, as if she truly cared nothing for such matters. He found it strange that the world insisted on branding her a harbinger of disaster. Qing Qingyu spoke slowly, tomorrow, Nanny Su will teach me to discern auspicious signs. She only knew that the totem of Nanchu was the dragon. Chui Qingyu glanced at her and explained, like the Chui family's totem, the unicorn, which is a great omen. There are also great omens like the nebula and the white elephant. Superior omens include the nine-tailed fox, the three-legged crow, and the red sparrow. Qing Qingyu listened intently, all traces of sleepiness gone. Chui Qingyu then mentioned the ominous signs surrounding her birth. Qing Qingyu raised an eyebrow. You saw them too? Chui Qingyu's expression was inscrutable. Naturally. How old were you then? Do you truly remember that scene? She teased with a smile, her eyes full of playful mockery. Chui Qingyu realized she was implying he was old and instantly grew angry. Qing Qingyu's smile bloomed like a flower as she shooed him out. Time flew by, and 3 years passed. Early in the 21st year of the Yuanhe era, the Chui couple remained in the capital, both in good health. In her spare time, Chui's mother would visit the princess's residence to chat with Qing Qingyu about the capital's latest news. Their bond was so strong it could easily be mistaken for Chui's mother having given birth to the 9th princess herself. One day, Chui's mother invited the 9th princess to celebrate the festival at the Chui residence. Winter lingered, yet plum blossoms bloomed brilliantly. Ruoyun plucked a branch and pinned it in Qing Qingyu's hair. Qing Qingyu stepped out of the mansion smiling, only to find Chui Qingyu standing outside like a graceful orchid tree. Qing Qingyu approached him, Chui Qingyu. A cold voice cut through the air from behind, you only remember him and forget your elder brother, is that it? She turned to see Xing Xiai leaning against a tree, his gaze fixed on Chui Qingyu, his eyes hiding hostility. Qing Qingyu smiled reassuringly. Brother arrived early. You must not have had breakfast yet. With that, she pulled her brother toward a noodle shop at the edge of the street. Chui Qingyu sighed helplessly and followed behind. The noodle shop was packed. Chui Qingyu used his money to secure a window seat. Qing Qingyu thanked him and sat beside him. Xing Xiai rolled his eyes, lifted his robe, and sat next to Qing Qingyu. Qing Qingyu sighed helplessly, brother, don't be so rude. The waiter brought the noodles, placing them first in front of Qing Qingyu. Here you are. 2 more bowls will be ready shortly. The aroma of noodles wafted up, with a bright green piece of Chinese cabbage floating on the broth. Qing Qingyu, who disliked greens, instinctively reached to discard it. Chui Qingyu stopped her. Wastefulness is a bad habit. Give it to me. Qing Qingyu nodded, carefully feeding it to Chui Qingyu and asking, is it too hot? Xing Xiai seethed inwardly, yes. Burn him to death. But only wore a dark expression outwardly. Chui Qingyu swallowed, warmth gradually spreading through him. Soon, the waiter brought the other 2 bowls of noodles, adding 2 poached eggs as an apology. My apologies, the shop was busy and we kept you waiting. The 3 didn't mind. Chui Qingyu calmly picked up an egg and placed it in Qing Qingyu's bowl. Xing Xiai raised a cold eyebrow, unwilling to be outdone. Qing Qingyu gazed at the egg in her bowl and spoke slowly, brother, Qingyu, why don't you just eat them yourselves? Seeing her brother ignore her and persist in competing with Cui Qingyu, Xing Qingyu tugged at his sleeve discreetly, gritting her teeth. Brother, don't forget, we're going to the Cui residence for the festival today. Why was he provoking the Cui family now? What was he trying to accomplish? Cui Qingyu's lips curled into a sly smile as he sneered, Your Highness looks rather pale. Could it be you're unwell? Perhaps you should return to the palace to rest today. I'll accompany the princess to see her parents, Xing Xiai interjected, his alarm bells ringing. He knew better than to confront him directly and quickly added, I'm perfectly fine. Of course we're going. Let's leave now. With that, he rose and strode purposefully toward the exit. Xing Qingyu sighed helplessly, pressing a hand to her forehead as she turned to Cui Qingyu with a hint of apology. Don't blame my brother. Cui Qingyu set down his chopsticks, his tone unreadable. I understand. He can't bear to part with you. He only wants what's best for you. Xing Qingyu studied his expression, a faint smile touching her lips. That's right. I'm probably the happiest person in the whole world right now. Her tone shifted as she added, but there's still one regret I carry. Cui Qingyu rose, clad in moon-white robes. He gently took Xing Qingyu's hand and led her toward the Cui residence, his voice as smooth as jade, I know. The surroundings were silent and empty, Xing Qingyu could clearly hear her own heart pounding. The Cui residence, with its white walls and blue tiles, exuded an air of ancient simplicity. As soon as they entered, a servant led them toward the main hall. Father Cui gave Xing Qingyu a nod, while Mother Cui beamed with warmth. Princess, please come sit. She gestured for Xing Qingyu to take a seat beside her, and Xing Qingyu obediently complied. Leaning close, Mrs. Cui whispered, Your wedding to Qingyu is imminent. Have you prepared that little booklet? Xing Qingyu froze, her face flushing crimson moments later. No, she murmured. Cui Qingyu spoke up then, Mother, the princess and I plan to leave the capital soon. Cui's mother turned, hesitation etched on her face. The wedding is imminent, where do you intend to go? Cui's father remained composed. Let the children go wherever they wish. They're grown now, with minds of their own. Stop worrying so much. Cui's mother gazed at her son, now towering above her, a wistful expression creeping over her face. In the blink of an eye, Qingyu is about to marry. Xing Qingyu's eyes glistened slightly, seemingly moved. Cui Qingyu's gaze flickered briefly as he bowed slightly. I will return safely with the princess. Xing Xiai, who had just entered the courtyard, overheard and hurriedly asked, Where are you going? Where? Naturally, to the frontier to bring his sister home. Cui Qingyu had received intelligence yesterday, the Han king had died suddenly, and his uncle was plotting to seize the throne. They had no interest in the usurpation, but Xing Qingyu's sister remained captive among the Huns. Years ago, during the marriage alliance, the Huns had sought Xing Qingyu's hand. Her sister had gone in her place. Now that the Han king was dead, it was time for her sister to return. The night was as dark as ink. After the reunion dinner, Xing Qingyu and Cui Qingyu mounted their horses, leading their private guards out of the capital. Xing Xiai wanted to follow, but Xing Qingyu refused. The wind blew as Xing Qingyu gazed at him deeply, whispering softly, Brother, the aristocratic families will support you. Their eyes met, and Xing Xiai stiffened. He had always seen his sister as a fragile, pitiful little girl confined to the cold palace. Yet now, in her gentle smile, he glimpsed her ambition, that treasonous heart. Xing Qingyu, seeing he understood, withdrew her gaze, pulled the reins, and galloped toward the frontier. After an unknown distance, Cui Qingyu waved his hand, signaling the procession to halt. The carriages and horses stopped immediately. Princess, he called to Xing Qingyu. She turned, offering a gentle smile. Today she wore not plain robes but form-fitting black garments, layered beneath a pale gold gauze overlay. A silver sash cinched her waist, making her already slender frame appear even more delicate. Cui Qingyu was similarly clad in black. Seated upon a large tree branch, they gazed upward at the bright moon. Moonlight spilled over stones and trees below, yet failed to illuminate their path ahead. The road ahead is uncertain, Qingyu. Are you afraid? Xing Qingyu murmured, her voice dreamlike. Cui Qingyu replied softly, To walk with you to the very end is my heart's desire. Caught off guard by his directness, Xing Qingyu couldn't help but smile. She glanced at Cui Qingyu's solemn expression and asked casually, "Did you do something in the past that wronged me?" He countered, "Why ask that suddenly?" Cui Qingyu's heart skipped a beat, as if a stone had been thrown into the lake of his heart, creating ripples before returning to stillness. The last time she had tested him was 3 years ago. He prided himself on being composed, yet every time she asked him such a meaningful question, his heart would tighten. Xing Qingyu avoided his gaze, fingering the half-piece of jade pendant in her hand. This pendant had been accidentally shattered into 2 pieces by Cui Qingyu during their first meeting years ago. He had given her this half. Cui Qingyu spoke slowly, "If I said I'd wronged you, that I owed you from a past life, would you believe me?" In all his years as an official, he had never done anything to betray anyone. But after Xing Qingyu died, he regretted it. Hearing this, Xing Qingyu's mind began to ponder. He wouldn't speak recklessly. Her eyes stung with tears, the suspicions she'd harbored for years were about to be confirmed. There was no such thing as unconditional kindness in this world. Cui Qingyu's excessive gentleness toward her had long made her suspicious. She didn't want to hear it, but her mouth remained stubborn. What kind of person was I in my past life? Do people truly have past lives? Cui Qingyu clenched his fists. The princess was a pitiful soul. How pitiful was I? In her past life, everyone around Xing Qingyu had abandoned her. She herself had turned to dust, buried beneath the earth. Xing Qingyu called out to him, "Are you spacing out?" Cui Qingyu snapped back to reality, unable to meet her gaze. He rose and walked toward the procession. Memories surged, his heart clenched and pulled to his throat. He wanted to flee, to avoid facing his mistakes. As he walked forward, he was suddenly embraced from behind, enveloped in the familiar scent of peach blossoms. Xing Qingyu asked, "In my past life, did I also love you?" Cui Qingyu's eyes stung as he answered with difficulty, "Yes." "People always fall in love with the same person over and over," Xing Qingyu murmured softly. "Just like Father Emperor, all the beauties in the harem look the same." Cui Qingyu stiffened. Xing Qingyu's eyes shone bright as stars. "I know why I was so devoted to you in my past life." Cui Qingyu asked, "Why?" Xing Qingyu released him, leaving a hollow ache in Cui Qingyu's heart. She tilted his head up, her gaze intense. "The world calls me a disaster star. Only you, besides my mother, brother, and sister, don't believe it." Cui Qingyu paused, raising an eyebrow with a smile. "And Qingyu's family doesn't either. The star of misfortune theory is ridiculous." Xing Qingyu punched his chest. "You dare contradict me? If this is how it is before marriage, what will it be like after?" She suddenly thought, "Once I use him to save my sister, I'll elope. After all, he's a pedophile." But her conscience made her hesitate. Cui Qingyu gazed at her tenderly. "Princess, do you know why I love you?" Seeing her unresponsive, he teased her with a soft sigh. In the treacherous world of politics, everyone harbors ulterior motives. "Only before you, princess, can I be completely unguarded." Xing Qingyu lifted her head, raising one eyebrow slightly, her tone tinged with accusation. "Are you calling me naive?" With that, she feigned anger, pouted her lips, and turned to stride away. Cui Qingyu hurried after her, calling softly as he followed, "Princess, slow your pace. The forest floor is strewn with dead wood, mind your step." Li Kei sat by the fire, nibbling on a dry ration, watching the 2 figures, one ahead and one behind. For some reason, the dry rations in her hand felt shriveled and utterly tasteless. A private soldier of the Cui family asked him, "Brother Li, is our young master Cui always like this?" Another soldier chimed in, "Rumor has it that the young master of the Cui family is a high mountain flower in the capital. Seeing him now, he doesn't seem like it." That was before he met the princess. He really was cold and aloof. Li Kei sighed helplessly. But unattainable beauty, is that really a term for a man? It was strange that the common folk in the capital described their own graceful young master that way. The private soldier cautiously probed again, then the rumor that the young master is a pedophile. Li Kei shot him a cold, strange look. "Don't ask what you shouldn't ask." The soldiers immediately nodded and went back to munching on their cakes. Truthfully, Li Kei was more curious than anyone. Her young master had visited the palace just 18 years ago, and upon returning, he told the head of the Cui family he wished to marry. And now, after just one day, he claimed to have felt an instant kinship with the ninth princess. Li Kei felt something crack inside her and needed a moment to collect herself. In the thicket, Xing Qingyu had merely run a short distance to relieve herself. Little did she know Cui Qingyu was hot on her heels. She turned awkwardly and explained to the distant figure. Instantly, she saw Cui Qingyu's face turn every shade of red. Watching his hasty retreat, she doubled over with laughter. After resting, the group pressed on toward the Xiongnu court. Riding mid-caravan, Xing Qingyu watched Cui Qingyu lead the way ahead, her heart a tangled mix of bitterness and sweetness. 3 days later, they reached the frontier. The yellow earth was strewn with sharp stones, dust swirling up to coat them all. A boundary marker bore the inscription, Frontier. Do not proceed. Cui Qingyu dismounted and walked to the center of the convoy, reaching out to help Xing Qingyu down. Meeting her questioning gaze, he said calmly, the Xiongnu territory lies just ahead. With so many people, we must split into several groups. Li Kei bowed and said, Princess, young master, allow me to scout ahead for intelligence. Xing Qingyu felt anxious and wanted to go herself. Cui Qingyu saw her intention, his heart skipping a beat. Let her go? What if she faces danger? He realized that whenever Xing Qingyu was involved, he lost his resolve. You want to go? Then go first. I'll. The words left his mouth, but his normally strategic mind sank. He added softly, I'll go with you. He wanted to stay by her side, to protect her if danger arose. Xing Qingyu was overjoyed at his permission. Li Kei scratched his head and interrupted, Young master, you don't know martial arts. If you and the princess encounter danger, who should the Cui family army save? This question stunned Xing Qingyu. Cui Qingyu paused, suppressing the urge to declare life and death together, and replied calmly, save the princess first. Having endured loneliness and despair, Cui Qingyu refused to lose Xing Qingyu again. After reaching this agreement, Xing Qingyu fell into a rare silence. Cui Qingyu stood before the group and ordered, 10 soldiers will accompany me and the princess. Li Kei, you go instruct the others, no need to change into Xiongnu attire. Just disguise yourselves as Hu merchants. Meet at the sacrificial site on the night the Xiongnu worship the heavenly god. Though the journey should be safe, remain vigilant. Proceed with caution. Xing Qingyu paid little heed, her eyes darting about the moment they entered Xiongnu territory. The Xiongnu were short and stocky, quite different from the people of the Central Plains. A cold wind whipped through, carrying coarse sand. Huns had set up numerous stalls, hawking their wares in an incomprehensible tongue. Some sold mare's milk, others meat, and still others furs. A skull painted with golden auspicious patterns, fashioned into a large wine vessel, suddenly caught Xing Qingyu's attention. Startled, she took a step back. Cui Qingyu stood behind her, steadying her firmly. Beheading prisoners of war is the highest honor for the Xiongnu, he said, his eyes darkening as he spoke each word deliberately. They behead dead horses and dead men, then fashion the skulls into drinking vessels. Even he found this practice gruesome. The words were terrifying, and Xing Qingyu's complexion paled further. She wondered, if the rescue failed, would they too be beheaded and turned into drinking vessels? A vision flashed through her mind, a burly, bearded man trampling their bodies, holding their severed heads aloft and laughing maniacally. Xing Qingyu's eyes suddenly hardened with resolve. She must get her sister out of this hellhole. Princess, come with me, Cui Qingyu said softly, extending his hand to her. Xing Qingyu suppressed her worry and placed her hand in his. Cui Qingyu drew a dagger from his robe, engraved with the Cui family crest, a unicorn. Xing Qingyu instantly understood his meaning and asked, you gave me yours. What about you? Cui Qingyu gazed at her, his voice gentle. Princess, I am very happy right now. Xing Qingyu was puzzled. Cui Qingyu grinned mischievously. Princess, you used to care only about your brother. Now you care about me. That's very good. The last 3 words were especially tender, making Xing Qingyu's cheeks flicker with warmth. The two walked through the Xiongnu territory as if no one else existed. The Xiongnu glanced up, struck by their striking beauty, unaware of their sinister intent. Perhaps Cui Qingyu hadn't realized that, before Xing Qingyu, he was merely a willful youth. In his previous life, he'd been as steady as an old man, his eyes deep and inscrutable, clearly no ordinary figure. As they walked, they encountered a caravan of merchants. The merchants had slightly tanned skin and wore clothing indistinguishable from the Xiongnu. Cui Qingyu recognized Xie Mingyu, the leader of the group. Xing Qingyu glanced around, noticing Cui Qingyu's expression remained unchanged. Xie Mingyu frowned, took a few steps forward, then turned back and called out, "Halt!" Xing Qingyu released Cui Qingyu's hand and asked with a smile, "Care to explain?" Cui Qingyu swore he never expected to encounter Xie Mingyu. In this lifetime, to avoid suspicion, he and she had no interaction. Xing Qingyu adopted an expression that said, "I'm all ears." Before Cui Qingyu could speak, Xie Mingyu asked, "Have I seen you two somewhere before?" She paused, then asked in astonishment, "The Cui family's young master?" Cui Qingyu shook his head and lied, "I'm not." Xing Qingyu sneered. Cui Qingyu continued his act, gazing at her with feigned passion, "I am not the Cui family's young master. I am your husband." Xing Qingyu's teeth ached at the sentiment. After a moment, she sighed helplessly, "Don't learn those pretentious, corny lines from the storybook Li Ke gave you." Cui Qingyu nodded in agreement. Xing Qingyu pressed, "What's your relationship with this woman?" Cui Qingyu's heart tightened. Seeing her press her lips together, he knew her anger was rising. Xie Mingyu frowned, displeased that this woman dared to scold such a handsome young master. She never imagined the young master would coax her, "In my past life, I wronged my wife. This lifetime, I'll serve you as you command. I wish to be your childhood sweetheart, accompanying you to gaze upon the vast desert and mountain rivers." Xie Mingyu sneered. Did they think they were immortals? She muttered inwardly, "Is this really the legendary Cui family gentleman from Nanchu, the one who sleeps with the wind and rests with the moon, untouchable by mortals? Definitely not. If it were him, how could he utter such words?" With this thought, Xie Mingyu felt much more at ease and exhaled deeply. After all, countless people shared the same name and surname. It wasn't impossible for someone equally handsome to hail from Central Plains. Xie Mingyu spoke coldly, "Enough. You're clearly not the person I know. You may leave now." Her words fell, yet the two men still stared at each other. Xie Mingyu paused, speechless for a moment. She then sidestepped them and strode purposefully away. Xing Qingyu glanced up at her before turning to ask Cui Qingyu, "Who is she?" Cui Qingyu felt inexplicably guilty and uneasy. Xing Qingyu lacked the memories of his past life, but Cui Qingyu could never forget the wrongs he had committed against Xing Qingyu for Xie Mingyu's sake. People could change, but that didn't erase past mistakes. Still, change was better than staying the same. Noticing a hint of sadness in Xing Qingyu's expression, Cui Qingyu replied solemnly, "That woman is Xie Mingyu of the Xie family." Xie Mingyu was the sole female general of the southern Chu kingdom, perpetually commanding troops abroad by imperial decree. Over the years, the Xie family's military power had grown increasingly formidable. Xing Qingyu lowered her gaze, a cold glint flashing in her eyes that struck Cui Qingyu as unfamiliar. "What are you thinking, princess?" he asked softly. Xing Qingyu spoke slowly, "You know my brother and I plan to rebel, right?" Cui Qingyu understood her concern and replied calmly, "The Xie family supports the crown prince, while the aristocratic families back the third prince. With both vying for the throne, the aristocrats and the Xie family will inevitably clash." The outcome remained uncertain. Xing Qingyu clenched her fists and forced a smile, "Cui Ling, we must win. She must win. Only by seizing power could she protect her loved ones." Cui Qingyu embraced her, warming her body chilled by the wind. He murmured in her ear, "We will win. I've made all the arrangements." Having served as imperial tutor in his previous life, he knew each prince's character and abilities inside out. "What's wrong with the crown prince?" Xing Qingyu asked, puzzled. "He has a fondness for men." The words struck like thunder, leaving Xing Qingyu gaping in shock. After a long moment, she finally asked, "Qingyu, how do you know?" Her heart raced. Could it be? Cui Qingyu's expression darkened, and he flicked her forehead. What are you thinking? Xing Qingyu clutched her head in protest. It's all your fault. You speak in riddles, leaving me completely baffled. Cui Qingyu's forehead creased with frustration. How could she blame him? She was the one jumping to conclusions. What do you truly think of me? Cui Qingyu's expression turned sorrowful. Xing Qingyu bit her lip, swallowing the words pedophile. She reached to tug at Cui Qingyu's sleeve, but he dodged her. Xing Qingyu realized he was genuinely upset. He'd never ignored her like this before. She felt like she'd missed something crucial. Suddenly, it hit her, hadn't she started by asking about Cui Qingyu and Xie Mingyu's relationship? How had the conversation veered so far off track? Xing Qingyu looked up and scanned the area. Cui Qingyu was gone. A private soldier of the Cui household bowed and reported, the young master has gone to his lodging tent. The Xiongnu lived in round, dome-shaped yurts. Xing Qingyu had never seen one in person, only glimpsed them in books during her etiquette lessons. Now she would see one with her own eyes, and her heart swelled with anticipation. Yet upon returning to the tent, Cui Qingyu was nowhere to be found. Ruoyun hadn't accompanied Xing Qingyu here. Bored, she scanned the tent's interior, her gaze finally settling on the large map at its center. The map depicted Nanchu, Beiqi, and the Xiongnu in the far north. Footsteps sounded outside the tent as Cui Qingyu approached, his expression subtle. Xie Mingyu has been captured by the Xiongnu. Xing Qingyu froze, furrowing his brow. How was she captured? Cui Qingyu lifted his robe and sat down, speaking slowly. She came to the frontier on a secret mission. Her capture is hardly surprising. Xing Qingyu's eyes flickered. Then shall we rescue her? Setting aside the rivalry between the Cui and Xie families, Xie Mingyu was a citizen of Nanchu. Thinking of the Xiongnu's methods, Xing Qingyu fell deep in thought. Cui Qingyu was rational. He analyzed, if we don't rescue her, the Xie family will suffer a severe blow. Xie Mingyu was the Xie family's cherished jewel. If the Xie family were weakened, they wouldn't have the strength to oppose the crown prince and the third prince. Xing Qingyu hesitated before saying, we'll rescue her. Silence hung in the tent until Cui Qingyu smiled, his features strikingly handsome. Xing Qingyu sighed, what a wasted opportunity. Qingyu, you don't seem surprised at all by my decision. Cui Qingyu felt fortunate to have encountered the kind and innocent princess once more. After calm deliberation, Cui Qingyu declared, rescuing Xie Mingyu would alert the enemy. We'll free the eldest princess too. He drew an item from his robe. Xing Qingyu frowned, a sleeping potion? To slip into tomorrow's Hun celebratory wine? Cui Qingyu shook his head. This is an incense-based tranquilizer. Did you know the consort Shu in the palace is my aunt? Xing Qingyu nodded. Yes, the exceptionally intelligent consort Shu. When the time comes, just cover your mouth and nose. Cui Qingyu looked at the dope, his expression composed. At the Xiongnu royal court's encampment, during the sacrificial season, Xiongnu soldiers patrolled in light armor and fur robes. The faint rustle of grass underfoot made a Hun soldier turn alertly, but seeing no one, he dismissed it as a trick of the light and resumed his patrol. Li Kei, pressed against the back of a tent, exhaled in relief and lit the soporific, placing it in the wind's path. Under the moonlight, this scene played out silently across the Hun encampment. A group of black-clad figures crept toward the area where Xie Mingyu and the Xiongnu Kei clan were held captive. Xing Qingyu paced inside his tent, anxious about the mission's success. Cui Qingyu spoke softly, it will be fine. Suddenly, Li Kei burst into the tent, exclaiming joyfully, Princess, young master, our people succeeded. That's good, Cui Qingyu replied, rising to address Xing Qingyu. We'll depart tonight. Once the Xiongnu awaken and discover the prisoners missing, they'll launch a search. He didn't want the princess to suffer the same fate as in his previous life, chased down and her body utterly destroyed. Xing Qingyu also feared unforeseen complications. An hour later, Xing Qingyu met her elder sister at the border. She whispered softly, Sister. Xing Ilio stared at her tearfully, her trembling arms wrapping around her younger sister. Wind-blown sand stung their eyes, mingling with the tears streaming down their faces. Xing Ilio wiped away her tears and smoothed Xing Qingyu's hair. Someone offered to take me away. I didn't believe it at first. Xing Qingyu's eyes reddened as she whispered, but sister. Xingyilio smiled gently. Because they said. It was you who sent someone to rescue me. She gazed at her sister, her voice filled with emotion. In the blink of an eye, you've grown so tall. I heard you've been betrothed to Cui Qingyu? Xing Qingyu's heart tightened. She nodded softly, then turned her gaze toward Cui Qingyu standing nearby. Xingyilio followed her gaze and teased, he's quite handsome, though by Han standards, he's just a pretty boy. Xing Qingyu gasped. Bathed in moonlight, Cui Qingyu wore all black. Though not as dazzling as when clad in white, he still captivated all who saw him. Xing Qingyu felt immense gratitude toward him. Without him, her sister would never have returned. Just then, Xian Mingyu stepped forward before Xing Qingyu could reach Cui Qingyu. She curved her lips into a smile. I knew it was you, Cui Qingyu. Thank you for saving me today. From now on, the Xie family owes you a life. Cui Qingyu's gaze remained impassive as he replied coolly, you should thank the 9th princess. Without her, I wouldn't have saved you. Xian Mingyu frowned, finding his words bitterly sharp. She turned to look at Xing Qingyu, thinking to herself, the princess isn't as tall as me. How delightful. Cui Qingyu walked straight toward Xing Qingyu and wrapped his arm around her slender waist. Xing Qingyu laughed and gently pushed his hand away. Cui Qingyu showed no annoyance, his demeanor as gentle as ever. As dawn broke, the group set off on their journey back to Nanchu. Xing Qingyu rode beside Cui Qingyu, no longer in the center of the procession. Under the golden glints of light, their shadows gradually drew closer together, and ahead, light finally appeared. After an unknown length of time, they entered the territory of Nanchu. Though the journey had been rough and they should have rested, Cui Qingyu, preoccupied with worries about the eldest princess, never stopped. Li Ke whispered to Xing Qingyu, Princess, please persuade the young master to let everyone have some cool tea. Xing Qingyu turned and said gently, Qingyu, I'm tired from writing. Let's stop for a moment. Cui Qingyu pondered, then we'll stop for half an hour. 3 hours later, Xing Qingyu pulled Cui Qingyu to the riverbank, saying she would catch fish to grill for him. Cui Qingyu rolled up his sleeves and waded into the river. The Cui family soldiers and Li Ke were stunned. Xingyilio's expression was subtle, isn't this how the Cui family does things? Li Ke, wanting to salvage the young master's dignity, stepped to the riverbank, young master, let me do it. You and the princess should rest. Cui Qingyu refused, you don't understand. Only by doing this myself can I show my sincerity. Li Ke felt heartbroken. After struggling to catch fish for half an hour, Xing Qingyu couldn't bear it anymore and called out, Qingyu, let's stop. Let's go back. She had forgotten that young masters from noble families would never wade into the water to catch fish. Cui Qingyu climbed back onto the bank. After this little incident, everyone set off again. Xing Qingyu leaned in close, are you okay? Cui Qingyu replied calmly, Qingyu is fine. Throughout the journey, he remained unusually quiet, never speaking another word of his own accord. Not far away, Li Ke's face flushed crimson as she fought desperately to stifle her laughter. Xingyilio's lips also curved upward, revealing a faint smile. While their side was filled with warmth and harmony, Xian Mingyu, who was following the group back to the capital, felt as if a thorn had been driven deep into her heart. Unable to bear the sight any longer, she yanked the reins hard and spurred her horse forward. The Nanchu soldiers accompanying her on the secret mission were courteous. They rode up alongside Cui Qingyu and Xing Qingyu, clasped their hands in a bow, and said, We are deeply grateful to young Master Cui and the 9th princess for your rescue. We will keep the matter of the eldest princess's return to the capital strictly confidential. Cui Qingyu looked at Xing Qingyu, who understood immediately and offered a faint smile. Thank you. After bidding farewell, the Nanchu soldiers departed. Cui Qingyu remained composed until they reached the imperial city, where his calm was shattered. Standing atop the city wall, dressed in a bright yellow dragon robe, was Xing Xiai, smiling down at them. Xing Qingyu froze for a moment before swiftly dismounting and racing toward the city gates. How long had it been since they last met, and now his brother wore the imperial robes? Xing Xiai briefly outlined the rebellion's progression. He led the aristocratic clan's troops, seized the crown prince as a hostage, and forced his way into the palace. As the Emperor and Empress Xie struggled to resist, Qin Xi addressed the Empress, "Upon my ascension, I shall wed a daughter of the Xie family as my Empress." He specifically clarified that this daughter of the Xie family did not include Xie Mingyu. A general like her belongs on the battlefield, expanding the borders of Nanchu. Though the Xie family held military power, they couldn't rush back to the imperial city in time. Empress Xie ceased her struggle, while the emperor raged, "You vile woman! I always knew you harbored treacherous intentions." Empress Xie replied coldly, "I've had enough of you." She'd had enough of the emperor's philandering and his constant suspicion of the Xie clan. The commander of the imperial guards wiped away tears. "You'll have to step over our dead bodies to get through." Qin Xi surrounded the palace with his army, bows drawn and horses poised. Since negotiation failed, war would be the answer. He turned to display his private troops, trained for 3 years, alongside the private armies of the aristocratic families to the imperial guards. Many imperial guards, sons of noble families, feigned death upon seeing defeat was imminent. Qin Xi sneered contemptuously, drew his sword, flung the scabbard to the ground, and gripped the blade with one hand as he strode slowly toward the Golden Throne Hall. Inside, he discovered the emperor had already fled through a secret passage. The emperor was no fool. He knew Qin Xi would not spare him. Qin Xi dispatched pursuers who tracked him to a small village, where the emperor hid in an outhouse. He believed he could escape this ordeal and rise again. Little did he know Qin Xi's men were ruthless. They set the village ablaze. The fire raged fiercely, consuming everything. The outhouse exploded with a thunderous boom. Whether the emperor perished or not, no one investigated. The soldiers intended to verify the body, but upon reaching the latrine, they exchanged glances, turned, and fled, their retching echoing behind them. Qin Xi stood calm, his fingers interlaced before him. "That is how it happened," he stated. Qin Qingyu asked anxiously, "What of those royalists?" Everyone understood that even with his achievements, Qin Xi could not escape condemnation for parricide. Opposition to his ascension would surely arise in court. Cui Qingyu fixed his gaze on Qin Qingyu and answered for Qin Xi, "They have been imprisoned." Those court officials were locked in the imperial dungeons. Only by submitting could they return to court. Nanchu boasted many literati. There were ample candidates for civil service posts. If necessary, they could open special imperial examinations to recruit from humble backgrounds. If the aristocratic families conspired with Qin Xi and shared benefits with the commoners, the discontent of the people would be halved. Since ancient times, interests have moved hearts. Qin Xi ignored Cui Qingyu, his gaze fixed on his elder sister returning from her marriage alliance. His voice was low, "Sister, it's been a long time." After years apart, Xiniliu no longer possessed her former delicate beauty. Trapped in the Xiongnu court for so long, her mindset clashed with those around her. Her heart remained knotted, her eyes filled with worry. She murmured softly, "From now on, we should all address you as Your Majesty." Early spring, the red sun hung high in the sky. Though a chill still lingered, the streets bustled with vibrant activity. The return of the peace marriage princess left the court officials embarrassed. Some worried, "The eldest princess is back, what if the Xiongnu attack?" What shocked the officials even more was that the third prince had rebelled. Some hastily pledged their loyalty, some remained calm at home, while others blamed the astronomical observatory. "Why didn't you foresee the third prince's treason?" The Yin scholars who observed the stars protested, "We saw no dark light above the observatory, nor did the purple star dim." Heaven is aiding Qin Xi. The officials were speechless. Yet courageous souls were not lacking. Some fiercely denounced Qin Xi, but seeing his indifference, they soon cooled off. Others blamed the imperial guards for weak defenses. Cui Qingyu nodded. "They are weak indeed." During the last ritual, the guards faced the black-clad rebels unprepared, descending into utter chaos. "I even took an arrow in the back." The memory weighed heavily on his heart. He remained uneasy about his rebirth. Since arriving here, he hadn't heard that celestial voice again. Rubbing his temples, he resolved to seek out Qin Qingyu. The capital streets bustled with shops and passers-by, the air thick with the aroma of delicious food. Upon reaching the princess's residence, guards informed him, "The princess has entered the palace." Cui Qingyu proceeded toward the imperial palace, encountering Qin Xi first. Xing Xiai stood on the jade steps before the golden throne hall, deep in thought. Cui Qingyu bowed deeply, "Your Majesty." Xing Xiai raised an eyebrow. "Minister Cui, no need for such formalities. Henceforth, this courtesy is dispensed with." Truthfully, he felt a secret satisfaction. He'd long wanted to see Cui Qingyu bend the knee. Cui Qingyu raised his head. The servant heard the 9th princess had entered the palace and came to seek her. Xing Xiai sighed, dismissed the palace attendants, lifted his robe to sit upon the 9 dragon steps, and beckoned him closer. As Cui Qingyu approached, Xing Xiai reached out and pulled him down to sit beside him. "The Cui family has rendered great service. I wish to infef you as a prince of a different surname." Cui Qingyu asked calmly, "Does your Majesty not wish for me to marry the princess?" Xing Xiai regarded him approvingly. "Qingyu is my sister. I do not wish her to marry into a prominent family. If she marries into the Cui family, she must observe propriety and conduct herself with care, unable to act as she pleases. I hope you will grant her this, and grant us this as well." Cui Qingyu replied unhurriedly, "I will not grant it. Only I am worthy of the princess, and she is to my liking." Xing Xiai smiled. "I understand. Go see my imperial sister. She will ask you the same." Cui Qingyu bowed and withdrew. A breeze stirred within the palace, rustling his sleeves. He walked the palace path with his back straight. Out of guilt, Xing Xiai had arranged a lavish palace for his imperial sister. Cui Qingyu entered the hall. Through the incense smoke, he saw glittering golden ornaments. Xinilio sat poised at her desk, her posture elegant, her shoulders slender and her neck graceful. Hearing footsteps, she set down the scroll in her hands and glanced up at Cui Qingyu. Her voice was soft as she asked, "Do you like Qingyu?" Cui Qingyu paused, his eyes instantly softening with warmth. He hastened to reply, "Of course I admire her." In his previous life, he had wronged Xing Qingyu, leading to her untimely death from sorrow. This lifetime, he would never repeat that mistake. Incense smoke curled from the burner, filling the chamber with its fragrance. Recalling her sister's harsh childhood in the cold palace, Xinilio pressed her lips together and said, "Qingyu endured great hardship and exhaustion back then, suffering few could truly comprehend. She's intelligent, yet still naive in matters of human relations." Her voice turned anxious. "You know well how many women dream of being with Minister Cui. People change. If you grow tired of her later, would you let Qingyu suffer that heart-wrenching agony?" Cui Qingyu hastened to assure her, "I know my own heart now. I won't betray her, nor will I let anyone mistreat her." Xinilio recalled her younger sister mentioning that Cui Qingyu had rescued her when servants in the cold palace bullied her, easing her worries slightly. She bowed solemnly and called out toward the hall entrance, "Little sister, how long do you plan to eavesdrop?" Xing Qingyu, dressed in a pale yellow richuan, stepped out from outside the hall and stood before them. Cui Qingyu's ears instantly flushed crimson. Xinilio smiled faintly, then turned and walked away slowly, leaving them space. Early spring arrived in the capital, and tales of the 9th princess and her prince consort spread among the common folk. Cui Qingyu never lingered after court, refusing to stop even when officials tried to detain him. The emperor was pleased, yet harbored a lingering resentment. He believed his younger sister to be the finest woman in the realm. Worried she might feel lonely at home, he resolved to send her some male companions to the princess's residence. He acted swiftly. The next day, 10 handsome young men arrived at the princess's residence. The eunuch delivering them felt as if he were in an ice cellar, Cui Qingyu radiating such coldness. Xing Qingyu hurriedly grasped his hand, "I don't want those courtesans. I only want you." Cui Qingyu's gaze darkened as he lowered his head to look at her. He seized her neck and pressed his lips to hers in a kiss that was both domineering and lingering. After the kiss, his anger dissipated entirely. The 10 courtesans stood speechless. The attendants of the princess's residence, accustomed to such scenes, wore numb expressions. Xing Qingyu sensed the chill emanating from Cui Qingyu and asked with concern, "Have you caught a chill?" Recent drizzles in the capital made catching a cold common. Cui Qingyu intended to say no, but the words changed on his lips, "Probably. When I was in the palace, your imperial brother always dragged me to the martial arts field for sparring. It's possible I caught a chill then." Xing Qingyu seemed to detect the scent of tea and frowned. "Your brother knows you can't fight. Sparring with you is just him beating you up, isn't it? She abruptly rolled up Cui Qinyu's sleeves, revealing his arms covered in bruises. She understood then. These past days, Cui Qinyu had avoided intimate moments with her, afraid she'd see his injuries. Xing Qinyu's eyes flickered as she sighed. I'm the one who caused this. Cui Qinyu replied earnestly, Princess, don't say that. Marrying you is the greatest blessing of my life. A spring breeze blew as the young couple embraced, deeply moved. The male attendants who had watched the entire scene stood speechless. They were going mad. What exactly had the emperor sent them here for? To watch the ninth princess and her consort display their affection? To report back to the emperor? That was just inviting trouble. Not far away, Ruoyun and Li Ke were chatting quietly. Ruoyun remarked, Don't you think our princess has gained a bit of weight lately? Li Ke studied her closely and replied honestly, I don't see any difference. The princess has always looked like this. He added, even if she has gained weight, it doesn't matter. The nobleman said he loves her no matter what she looks like. Ruoyun shook her head. That's just him flattering the princess. Li Ke grew flustered. My master always chooses his words carefully. If he says he loves her, he truly does. Ruoyun raised an eyebrow, ignoring him, and walked toward the princess. Ruoyun? Xing Qingyu spotted her. Ruoyun curtsied and asked, Princess, should I personally escort those male attendants back? Since they were personally bestowed by the emperor, dismissing them casually might be seen as disrespectful to the sovereign, hence her inquiry. Cui Qinyu tightened his grip on Xing Qingyu's hand. Xing Qingyu met his eyes and replied earnestly, No matter what, no one can separate us. Cui Qingyu's expression softened as he pulled her tightly into his embrace. Then let's enter the palace together to send them back. You can also meet your imperial brother. Before the golden phoenix hall in the palace. Sunlight streamed down as Xing Qingyu and Cui Qinyu slowly ascended the jade steps. Her fair skin glowed in the rays. Worried she might get sunburned, Cui Qinyu positioned himself on the shaded side. Their shadows on the ground gradually merged, mirroring how their hearts drew ever closer. Entering the hall, they found Xing Xiai seated on the dragon throne, reviewing memorials. Xing Xiai remarked, Cui Qinyu, be magnanimous. It's just a few male companions. Must you be so petty? Xing Qingyu sighed helplessly, crouching before her brother. Brother, why must you be like this? Xing Xiai set down the memorials and sighed. Cui Qinyu, you've completely bewitched my sister. Just then, a eunuch announced, Your Majesty, the eldest princess requests an audience. Xing Xiai made no objection. Footsteps approached. The princess entered, glanced at her sister and brother-in-law, curtsied, and smiled. I heard my sister had entered the palace, so I came to see. It's been a while, and you've grown even more beautiful. The princess had only intended to join the festivities, but upon seeing Xing Qingyu, her heart skipped a beat. Had this girl gained weight? Xing Xiai had palace attendants bring in chairs. Sit down, everyone. Xing Qingyu sat down and chatted with the eldest princess about family matters. The Minister of Rights has taken another concubine. His wife doesn't even care. The minister is nearly 50 and still taking concubines? The eldest princess turned to Cui Qinyu, her gaze sharp. Minister Cui, you would never take a concubine in your lifetime, would you? Cui Qinyu's heart tightened, but he answered calmly, In this life, princess, you are enough for Qinyu. Xing Qingyu murmured softly, Why only this lifetime? Couldn't it be lifetime after lifetime? She believed in past lives, so why not eternal devotion? Cui Qinyu, swear a solemn oath. Xing Xiai suddenly stood up straight. Cui Qinyu rose and bowed, his robe's hem fluttering. Qinyu swears, lifetime after lifetime, to love only the princess. If the princess does not marry, this servant will never wed. Should this oath be broken, may I meet no peaceful end. Xing Qingyu was moved, gazing at him and saying, I do not want you to meet no peaceful end. Seeing the two about to exchange another loving glance, Xing Xiai sighed helplessly, feigning anger, Enough, enough. Stop showing off in front of this emperor. It's painful to watch. The eldest princess looked pleased and said gently, If we're talking about pain, your majesty can't compare to Cui Qinyu. He's taken quite a beating from you these past few days. Xing Qingyu, who was pulling Cui Qingyu back to his seat, nodded vigorously. Xing Xiai said slowly, then summoned the imperial physician to examine him. After a stick of incense burned, the physician checked Cui Qingyu's injuries and prescribed an ointment. Cui Qingyu politely thanked him, "My deepest gratitude." The physician bowed in response, "Your courtesy is excessive, Your Highness." The princess regent glanced at her slightly plump younger sister, a thought striking her. She immediately called out to the physician, "Hold on." The physician halted, respectfully inquiring, "Your Highness, what are your instructions?" The three inexperienced individuals in the chamber all turned their gaze toward her. The princess's gaze shifted, her tone turning serious. "Take my sister's pulse." Xing Xiai frowned, looking at Xing Qingyu. Her complexion was rosy, how could she possibly be ill? Cui Qingyu clasped Xing Qingyu's hand tightly, his eyes filled with worry. Xing Qingyu, however, remained calm. "I know my own body. I'm not sick," she said softly. Despite her words, she extended her wrist for the physician to take her pulse. Better to treat an illness early, she thought. Living in the princess's mansion, well-fed and well-rested, what ailment could she possibly have? "Congratulations, princess." "Congratulations, prince consort." "The princess is with child." The physician's joyful voice echoed to all present. At that moment, spring light was radiant, all things were reawakening, and it seemed as if only you and I were worthy of anticipation in this world. 2024, Nanchu Museum. The docent's voice still reverberated. The kingdom of Nanchu has a history that evokes sighs of regret. It is said that in the early days of the 26th year of the Yuan He era, the Xie family, who held military power, rebelled during a grand sacrificial ceremony. The emperor was killed, and the imperial tutor vanished without a trace. A flash of white light, the voice stuttered, followed by static, then switched to another version. The kingdom of Nanchu has a history that evokes sighs of regret. It is said that in the early days of the 21st year of the Yuan He era, the third prince, backed by the imperial tutor, staged a rebellion. The emperor was killed, and the Nanchu dynasty changed hands. Xingye, her hair in a ponytail, heard it hazily, thinking she must have misheard due to exhaustion. She was a historical docent, and this wasn't the first time she dreamt during her lunch break. Noble families rebelling, an emperor murdered, surely the imperial tutor was the main character here, playing the script of manipulating a puppet emperor. How boring. She yawned, ready to drift back to sleep. Beep, her phone rang. Xingye, half asleep, swiped the screen. "Hello? You're still asleep? Are you going to do today's narration?" The voice paused before asking. "Commentary? Hadn't she already covered it yesterday?" Xingye asked in confusion. "Mentor, I finished the history of Nanchu yesterday. The princess was killed by her prince consort, who then married his new lover and used that to seize the throne." "Did I miss something?" The voice on the other end sounded strange. "You must have been lecturing in your sleep." Xingye glanced at the date, June 2nd, 2024. Wait, shouldn't today be the 3rd? Before she could process it, the voice continued, "The Nanchu princess died of illness, not murdered by her prince consort. And he never had a new lover, that's just wild history." Xingye felt the world had turned surreal. She'd researched extensively, it was clear the prince consort had killed the princess. Even though it was considered unofficial history, she still felt a pang of guilt. Xingye muttered under her breath, "Unofficial history is still history." Her mentor didn't engage in idle chatter. "Xingye, we're discussing the artifacts unearthed from Princess Changle's tomb, not her gossipy love life. You need to thoroughly understand the night pearls, phoenix crown, and murals found in the tomb." Xingye nodded hurriedly. Right. Her advisor paused mid-sentence, sighed, and ordered, "Go look up the official history immediately. Stop reading the unofficial accounts. I've emailed you the brief report on the excavation of the tomb of Princess Changle of Nanchu. Read it yourself." With that, the advisor hung up. Xingye exhaled deeply, opened her computer, logged into her email, and the file appeared quickly. First came the tomb layout diagram, followed by descriptions of the burial structure and excavated artifacts. The sheer volume of information left Xingye's eyes darting around in bewilderment. Just then, a message from her friend popped up. Green grass, Xing Xing, the legend of Princess Changle of Nanchu premiered last night. It's about the very Princess Changle of Nanchu you're researching. Your dad here, what's her story? All her family died, is this some kind of reincarnation revenge plot? Green grass, not at all. It's the prince consort and princess's 3 lifetimes of love, super tragic and beautiful. In the last life, the prince consort betrayed the princess, so this time he's reclaiming what's hers. Your dad here, bye. Xinya inwardly rolled her eyes. Directors these days had no respect for viewers' intelligence, just chasing trends. That said, she still opened her phone to look up the history. Year 18 of the Yuanhe era, Princess Changle met and became betrothed to the prince consort. Year 21 of Yuanhe, the third prince rebelled and proclaimed himself emperor, establishing the Xintong era. Year 1 of Xintong, the princess conceived. The prince consort was so overjoyed he ran into a tree. Year 2 of Xintong, the princess gave birth to a daughter. The emperor named her Zhu Zhu. The prince consort's protest was rejected. In the 29th year of Xintong, the princess passed away from illness at age 44. That same winter, the prince consort also died of illness. Xinya froze, this doesn't match my memories of Nanchu's history. From their meeting and betrothal onward, the princess's life had been smooth sailing. Just then, Qingqing's message arrived again. Kinking-keo, many say it's implausible for the prince consort to fall for the 12-year-old princess at first sight. They believe he's reincarnated, and archaeology experts agree. Your father here, experts? Kinking-keo, initially uncertain, but after digging through historical records, historians discovered the prince consort was a seasoned official. From the 18th year of Yuanhe to the 5th year of Xintong, he could predict natural disasters in advance without a single miscalculation. The TV adaptation is a bit fantastical. Your father here, how fantastical. Kinking-keo, the princess and prince consort were originally meant to love each other from youth to old age. The drama added 3 lifetimes. In the first lifetime, the prince consort betrayed the princess, who poisoned herself. In the second, they reunited. In the third, the prince consort awoke from his dream and couldn't find the princess. Xinya's heart tightened as she opened the blue video app. On screen, the young imperial tutor realized his return to the past was a dream. Standing before the princess's grave, his hair turned white overnight. On New Year's Eve of the 26th year of the Yuanhe era, the imperial tutor poisoned himself at the grave. The end. After watching the drama, a sharp pain pierced Xinya's chest. She raised her hand to wipe it away, only to find tears on her face. She froze. What was happening? Ding. The WeChat notification sound snapped her back to reality. What do you want for dinner tonight? I'll cook it for you. It was her senior, Cui Yu, also her boyfriend of 3 years. Sweet and sour spare ribs, cola chicken wings. Xinya's expression softened as she replied earnestly. Regardless of how Princess Changle lived her life, telling her story and preserving the artifacts was her job. Living her own life well and nurturing her relationship were what truly mattered. The story concludes. Thank you all for your companionship. See you in the next chapter.